pag-isipan ng hulmahan ng ating linangan sa puntahan tungkol sa dulaan. Ituloy ang paghahabi ng kamalayan, paghahabi ng karanasan, paghuhubog ng kasaysayan, tayo't makilahok sa Tampok Sabadulaan. Ha 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 ha. Aani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Ani ng sining, ani ng galing, diwa at damdamin ng taong bayan. Ani ng anyo ng ating pagkatao, ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Aani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Ani ng liwanag ng kamalayan, ani ng diwa ng taong bayan. Ani ng gabay sa ating paglalakbay, ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Aani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan. Aani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Ani ng likha ng taong malikhain, ating anihin at ihahain. Ani ng saysay, ani ng salaysay, aning kasaysayan ng taong bayan.
Ani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan. Ani, 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 ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Kamalayan, liwanagan, pagdiriwang.
Ani, ani, ani,
Ani ng sining.
ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Ani, 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 ani.
Ani ng sining ng taong bayan. Ani ng sining ng taong bayan.
Ani, 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 ani.
Ani ng sining ng taong bayan. Ani, 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 ani. Ha 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 ha.
Pagsanib mga bayani ng sining at kultura, lumikha ng sandigan tungo sa kaganapan. Harapin hamon ng bagong panahon, bigyang ilaw ang karinlan. Magsuri pag-isipan ng hulmahan ng ating linangan sa puntahan tungkol sa dulaan. Ituloy ang paghahabi ng kamalayan, paghahabi ng karanasan, paghuhubog ng kasaysayan, tayo't makilahok sa Tampok Sabadulaan. Magandang hapon po sa lahat at salamat sa inyong paglahok at pakikinig dito sa Tampok Sabadulaan, Saturday Conversations on Theater o kuntahan tungkol sa dulaan tuwing Sabado. Ang Tampok ay isang flagship project ng National Commission for Culture and the Arts, Committee on Dramatic Arts. Simulan po natin ang hapong ito sa isang pagpupugay sa ating bansa at sa ating bandila. Mga kaibigan, para magbigay ng pambungad na pagbati, narito ang pinuno ng NCCA Committee on Dramatic Arts, si Ginoong Felimon Blanco.
Maayong hapon sa tanan. Peter Brook once said that a stage space has two rules. First, anything can happen. Second, something must happen. And right now, in the Philippine theater stage, we are working to make it happen. Our envisioned Academy of Philippine Theater. Welcome to Tampok Sabadulaan, Saturday Conversations on Theater. This is our 7th week of sharing ideas, thoughts, vision, and dream of setting up a blueprint of an Academy of Philippine Theater. Once again, I am thanking all those who regularly follow this weekly conversation. Tampok is a flagship project of the National Committee on Dramatic Arts of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, which aims to create a space for the reflection on some of the country's best practices in building a curriculum for theater praxis, and to examine the challenges in the formation of a curriculum on Philippine theater. We are honored to have in the panel this afternoon a pool of theater leaders from the different sub-island clusters representing the various regional theater networks in the country. This is an equally important panel because this will show or prove the theater is alive in the whole country, and their experiences in the regional theater networking will be of great value to the envisioned academy. In behalf of the NCCA National Committee on Dramatic Arts, I would like to virtually welcome you all to the 7th online conversation of Tampok Sabadulaan, Saturday Conversations on Theater. Be inspired of the Filipino artistry and creativity. Tara na't makitampo. To share the synthesis of last week's Tampok Sabadulaan, here is the convener of Tampok, Ms. Desa Quisada Pam.
Magandang hapon. Maayong hapon sa atong tanan. Again, it's a pleasure to be with you all. We are now on our 7th Tampok Sabadulaan session. And again, I wanted to give an overview of what had transpired thus far. So we began on the 1st of August with establishing the rationale for the Academy of Philippine Theater with Gardy Labad. And then it was followed by a session setting the context for the Academy, tying it with the NCCA Committee on Dramatic Arts past projects, especially in the last decade, but also the findings of the study on Philippine values and the broader cultural movement for social change. Then we had a series of panels that focused on the following. The first was on theater and heritage, then theater and education, professional theater, and just last week we had a wonderful panel reflecting on their rich experience around theater in development and governance. So last week we had with us Jonas Lim from Calbayog City, Al Tesoro from Capiz, Emmy Roslinda from Bohol, and Arman Santa Ana of Malolos, Bulacan. It is noteworthy that all of those who shared their work experiences were involved first in the arts and cultural work and some in development work before they engage with structures and programs in governance, and using existing legislation, mandates, and programs and pushing for additional ones. They were able to carve out a space in government to pursue cultural work in the following broad areas. So the session was synthesized by Leia Espaliardo, who used the metaphor used by Ms. Roslinda, the bokag, or a woven basket that is used for crops, but also it has become a kind of a vessel that is passed from one community to another. So depicting community, but also industry and creativity. So the four broad areas or several thematic strands in this woven basket include first, safeguarding cultural and natural heritage and promoting cultural development. So the strengthening of the sense of identity and pride of place. No? Second was also building collective memory as a people and as a nation. Third, developing the tourism industry that is rooted in culture, history, and also protecting the integrity of nature. Fourth, it was also about addressing development issues and building sustainable, creative communities. So this may include issues around poverty, disaster risk reduction, inclusion, and many more. So the panel responded to the following essential questions. No? So the contributions of speakers' context and experiences in shaping the Academy. Also the Academy's content and pedagogical standards as envisioned by the speakers. And third, the Academy's structure, spatial, organizational, human resource as envisioned by the speakers. So these are the areas that basically some of the points raised last week. Well, one, that in shaping the context, it is important to look at the community's context as the impetus. Second, some also looked at the legal basis for claims, entitlements, and assertion for space to engage in governments and the system. Another related point to the shaping of the Academy is having a clear vision, mission, shared values, and goals for the Academy. Then the pedagogy and artistic or aesthetic praxis in community theater, governance, in institutions and network building, creative industries, repertory theater and cultural research, mainstreaming, culture and governance, or in other words, what are their lived experiences. In relation to content and pedagogy, these are some of the key points raised last week. One, some saw it as a three-structured program academy that will develop the students in relation to leadership, academics, and cultural development. That the content and pedagogy could be modular, that part of the pedagogy is the immersion and also the cross-cultural learning and exchange, that the content may invariably include theater and performing arts, community theater organizing, resource generation, cultural heritage, again, sustainable creative communities, and others. Then it has to also be culture-centered and values-oriented, including values such as democracy, inclusiveness, etc. And then for the note about structure, some mention that it has to be state-sponsored and in fact free for the students. Second, that there could be regional learning centers or hubs with strong existing structural base that are located in the regions. That it should be run and managed by qualified cultural leaders, and that there has to be a strong social infrastructure. There's also the need for new leadership, but also that it has to be about revolutionizing the arts. And then, so there's the 3R questions refer to the redundant, rhetorical, but requisite questions that Leia also pointed out. So why an academy and for whom? Second, what will set the academy apart from the rest? Third, what does it want to achieve? And then third, is it sustainable enough? And how? Also. So, so some of the key themes again that came out is that the state or the system we have to gain their support and also their engagement. That there has to be a collective and community ownership. And also that there has to be critical representation and then a transformative and new leadership. Leia ended with some of these creative challenge that she saw in relation to the presentations. That in building academy, it has to build from a continuum. In other words, it has to be built from what already exists, from lived experiences to the emergent learnings from our lived experience. That also second, that there has to be a pivot, a shift. 21st century called for creative destruction, which means innovation, digital transformation. What does it mean for the academy? And then the third is the critical essencing, or having a critical perspective of everything and nothing and all in betweens. No? So themes like cultural diversity, governance, identities, etc. So, so that is where we ended from last week's Tampok Sabadulaan. And I would like to invite now our Tampok Conference Director, Lutgardo Gardilabad, to again just ground us on this week's theme around organizing and networking. Gardy?
Hello, salamat Dessa. Naririnig ba ako? Okay ako? Okay bang audio?
Yes.
Okay, alright. Yeah, okay, yun lang kung titingnan na kodigo. Okay. Isang magandang hapon sa ating pamayanan ng mga dulaan at mga alagad ng sining sa teatro. Hello sa ating pinakamamahal na mga speakers, resource persons, Edward, Bobet, Rudy, Romy, Bundo, at Te. Naku, buong bansa nandito at nakikinig sa inyo. Okay? Pero siguro magsisimula akong introduce kayo at ang topic na merong konting nostalgia. Diba? Ano bang theater organizing networking was then before the late 90s? Ito ay organizing around disciplines or drama groups in the schools. Then they slowly developed into networks connected with rising social movements, climaxing for the first peak sa ating makaisa 1983 and 1984, giving birth together to a national movement of theater and culture. But alas, by mid-1990s, nagsimulang nag-wither itong mga networks na ito. Maraming factors, pero hindi natin kailangan bulagdatin pa ito ngayon. When suddenly, the time the NCCA came into being, and with it, the National Commission for Culture and Arts, Committee on Dramatic Arts, dahan-dahan nagkaroon ng new configuration in organizing and networking, a phenomenon that emerged in the next decades from 1999 up to the present time. I think it is a unique phenomenon in world theater, but it is only in the Philippines, I guess, that theater organizing or networking has been connected to the concept of social change in a long continuum of time. Hindi lang isang configuration of theater actors, directors, or artists, but also with that, these artists cannot be isolated with their communities, their sectors, their geographic regions where they are engaged. The experience of these four outstanding theater organizers enriched the concept of theater work with the theatrical art together with their groups more than mere disciplines, but as an essential adjunct to people's movement, people's empowerment, change, and transformation. How Edward Perez mentored, coached tens or hundreds of theater groups of theater artists in Luzon. How Bobet Mendoza and his group was instrumental in giving birth to an alternative network of theater creators in schools and communities in a city landscape of professionally and conservatory inclined theater formations. How Rudy Reveche literally mothered with Eric, Tanya, Al, Alex in Western Visayas, and now together with Central Visayas sa TABOK, student and heritage groups to advocate for artistic, environmental, and heritage-sensitive drama groups, and how Romy Narvaez, with scores of theater groups across Mindanao, committed themselves to herald the identity, the presence, and the trailblazing struggles and visions of Mindanaoan theater, challenging the concepts of centralized and urbanized theater formation to evolve a distinctly Mindanaoan network of theater originators and creators. Today, we listen with love, admiration, and respect to these awesome leaders and their awesome journeys, how they might engage with the vision of an Academy of Philippine Theater. Because ang ating kalakaran, ang ating practice ay hindi lang pag-aartista, pag-acting, no? Artists, teachers, leaders, organizers, lahat yan, sana maisaman natin sa pagbubuo itong pangarap na isang akademya ng Philippine Theater. Do they resonate with such a dream? If so, what can they contribute to make it a reality? If not, what are their vacillations and caveats? Whatever they are, whatever they say, no matter how differentiated their insights might be, their wisdom springs from experience. Their commitment and passion for a truly Philippine theater has proven matchless. Ladies and gentlemen, our gurus in theater networking and organizing. Maraming salamat.
Our moderator for today's Tampok Sabadulaan is Mr. Alejandro Joma, or Bundo. He started cultural work with the Banago Youth Christian Organization as a regular performer during Lenten plays and later to a diocesan-based group Teatro Pangkatilingban, which performed in different communities. During his seminary and University of San Carlos Cebu days, he acted as Budyok in Al Santos production entitled Ang Sistema ni Prof. Tuco, directed by Nestor Horfilia. He left seminary and worked full-time as a cultural worker with Teatro Pangkatilingban, Teatro Obrero, Negros Theater League, and the Concerned Artists of the Philippines, Negros Chapter. After a year as a volunteer at PETA, he was assigned as Negros Coordinator for Banaag, Center for the Popularization of Visayan People's Culture, and Dungog, an alliance of cultural organizations in the Visayas, while assisting managing the cultural programs of Teatro Obrero Negros, including the annual commemoration of Escalante Massacre until 2017, and of Bayan Negros. He currently works in Himamaylan City as advisor for special concerns. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, let us all welcome Bundo Joma.
Mayong hapon sa inyo tanan. Mayong hapon gid halin sa Dakbanwa sang Himamaylan City, Negros Occidental. Akon ginakalipay nga mangin inyo moderator sa ikapito nga Tampok Sabadulaan. Our synthesizer for today is Ms. Fe Remotige, bantog sa iyang angga, Pepot. Pepot studied mathematics at ICC in Osami City, Anthropology at Xavier University in Cagayan de Oro City, Management at the Asian Institute of Management, Business Economics at the University of Asia and the Pacific. She also had special studies in social health insurance at Heidelberg University, Germany, intellectual property rights at the National University of Singapore, and cultural studies at Flinders University, Australia. Her work experiences include 15 years in different non-government organizations, mostly in cultural institutions doing participatory methods and research. 20 years as local expert of Foreign Assistance Project as part of a team providing technical advice to Philippine government. And currently, for the last 12 years, as Chief Executive Officer of a social enterprise. Pepot is a cultural worker since the 1970s to present. She is a published poet, playwright, founding chair of the Mindanao Community Theater Network, or MCTN, circa 1985 to 95, and founding chair of the Mindanao Equity for Creativity and Arts, or MECA, circa 2012. Mga higala, si Pepot Remotique.
May hapon sa tanan, and let us listen and let us learn together. Thank you.
Daghang salamat may Pepot. Excited na po ang tanan nga maminaw sa imong synthesis. Ngayon, ang unang tagapagsalita ay walang iba kundi si Edward Perez. Siya ay Executive Director ng Arts Research and Training Institute in Southern Tagalog Inc. or Artist Inc. Los Baños, Laguna. Si Edward ay isang playwright, director, isang theater and creating
Please unmute, Bundo. Bundo, you are muted.
Si Edward ay kasalukuyang Vice Head ng National Committee on Dramatic Arts, National Commission for Culture and Arts. Isang visiting instructor for theater and creative writing sa Philippine High School for the Arts mula pa noong 2008. Isang creative director ng theater teacher sa Montessori Children's House in Los Baños, Laguna at Calamba City, Laguna mula pa noong 1996. Among his many engagement in cultural work include serving as the head convener of the Malikaing Guro International Conference on Culture-Based Education since 2014, as well as Likhandula International Arts Exchange and Collaboration from 2016. He is a member of the Performance Studies International Network, the program director of the National Training Workshop for SPA teachers from 2012 to 2016, the chair of LUSONG, Luzon Arts and Culture Network, Inc. in 2003. He is a 6-time Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Awardee for Literature and has published his plays and several manuals. Mga kaibigan, si Ginoong Edward Perez.
Okay. Can you hear me, Dessa?
Yes, Edward.
Okay, I will start. Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Good afternoon to all. My topic is about organizing and networking. I'm from Artists Incorporated. This is our practice in Luzon, especially from the perspective of our organization. Next, please. The history of linkages in Luzon. Actually, pwede nating hatiin ito sa tatlo. The first one is from 1975 to 1985. Many of the groups that were formed were to some extent politically motivated. Theater was seen as a platform in organizing the youth, school, and the community. the youth in the school and in the community. So as early as 1977, we have the Teatro Malohocan Incorporated from UP Los Baños was established, the Barsuing Kalinangan Foundation in 1980, and the Pantanghalan Sining of Laguna in 1980s. And then by the succeeding years, 1985, 1994, this was the era that we need to strengthen the region-wide linkages complementary with the formation of national linkages. So kasi nagkaroon na ng mga initiative to come up with a national body ng mga artists and cultural workers. And then, so in Luzon, we decided to come up with a different sub-regional network, pero nagkatagpo na rin bilang isang Luzon network. But on that years, 85 to 94, malaki pa yung hibo na tinatawag na they were doing it because it was socially or politically motivated. By 1994, nagkaroon ng pagbabago sa relasyon ng mga pangkat, pangkultura o sa ugnayan ng mga pangkat. Art and culture was the basis for connecting. Ibig sabihin, ano man ang iyong perspektiba o palapalagay sa pagtingin sa paggamit ng teatro, as long as ikaw ay lumili ka ng sining, maaari kang maging bahagi ng isang malawak na network sa Luzon. At malaking bagay dito ang naging papel ng National Commission for Cultural Arts. Maybe majority of the groups na nabanggit ko still exists from 1994 to present. Inilagay kong artists because that time artists assumed the function of secretariat role in many of the projects or initiatives, cultural initiatives in Luzon. Next, please. Come to think of it, when we look at the theater groups in Luzon, marami po ito. Umaabot ng 30 hanggang 40. Pero kung titignan natin, merong tumagal na, merong mga nawawala, lumilitaw, pero it's a loose network ng mga organisasyon na nagkikita-kita from time to time ayon sa napagpasyahang proyekto o activities. Kadalasan tinatawag namin itong Lusong Network, or Luzon Theater Network, at kung minsan meron pa tayong Luzon Arts and Culture Network Incorporated. Next, please.
Three decades of artistry. 3 decades of passion for culture. 3 decades of collaboration. 3 decades of advocacies. And 3 decades of commitment to serve. Artists Incorporated.
Kami po ang Artists Incorporated, isang non-government organization established in 1987. Kami po ang kabahagi sa paglulunsad ng networking o ng linkages sa buong Luzon. Ibig sabihin, tumutukoy po ito sa 5 regions, Region 1, Region 2, Region 3. Region 1, Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Central Luzon, Southern Luzon, Bicol, and of course the Cordillera Autonomous Region. Ngayon, mayroong mga features, so may mga katangian ang ugnayan namin na inilulunsad ayon sa practice na sinasagawa ng Artists Incorporated. Narito po, una po yung respect and learn, paggalang at pagkatuto sa bawat isa. Ikalawa, sustainability by reinventing strategies and programs. Pagtitiyak na magpapatuloy ang mga lahat ng initiative sa gawaing sining sa pamamagitan ng pagbibigay panibagong kaparaanan ng mga estratehiya at programa. At ikatlo, ang pagtiyak na nakaugat ito sa realidad ng community at ang pagkakaroon ng malinaw na vision, mission at goal. Dito po sa paggalang at pagkatuto, marami na pong karanasan at Luzon at sa aming palagay, malaking bagay ang natutunan namin dito. Ang Pasilag po, nakadikit dati, nakaugnay sa tinatawag na panlalawigan lupon ng kultura. At mula 1979 hanggang 1994, naging bahagi ng Laguna o ng probinsya ng Laguna o ng pamahalaang ng Laguna ang pagkakaroon ng Culture and Arts Program. At ang Pasilag ang isa po masigla nito. Subalit after nawala po yung Gobernador San Luis, nawala rin po yung ating programa sa panlalawigan lupon ng kultura. With the new leadership, with the new governor, nagbago po yung trust nito. So what happened is hindi na naging culture and arts and focus ng Laguna. The same thing with Barasuing Kalinangan Foundation Incorporated. In fact, isa ito ang mahalagang makita nating karanasan. Ang Barasuing Kalinangan Foundation, ang kauna-unahang grupo na nagsikap makipag-coordinate o makipag-ugnayan sa pamahalaan at nagkaroon ng ordinansa na taon-taon ay maglaan ng local government ng 1 million sa kanilang grupo para sa mga pagtatanghal. And then they were able to procure a lot. The government provided BK with a performance venue. But recently, with our talk with BK, nawala po yung venue nila. Nagginamit na ng local na pamahalaan yung supposed to be theater venue nila para sa ibang dahilan. Ganon din po yung UPLB Umalahocan na sanay sa pag-oorganisa ng iba't ibang pangkat, nakahalo kami ng mga karanasan mula dito at sa Tulusanes. Maaaring may pagkakaiba, pagkakapareho, pero nandun ang respect and learn. Second, sustainability. How do we reinvent our strategies, especially nagpabago po ang panahon? How do we situate and reinvent our basics? As far as us, the artist is concerned, we were organized as arts research and training. And so we do research and training, and we do production as a show window of the research and the trainings that we are doing. Third, our network or networking initiative would consider the idea of grounded in the community realities. Dapat chinecheck natin from time to time, what is our purpose? Why are we here? After ilang years, bakit nandito pa yung ating theater organization, theater company or itong NGO natin? Anong purpose, ano ang silbi na tinutugunan nito sa kanyang komunidad? At kaugnay nito yung taking hold of the vision and mission. Sa panahong hirap sa pinansya ang mga ating mga artists, it's really tempting if projects will come in, especially with the government or with the politicians. Challenging yon to survive. There are a lot of offers, but how do we ensure that we get hold of our vision and mission to continue the purpose for what our organization was formed? Next, please. So as early as 1996, we dreamed of a center, a physical center. By year 2018, we came up, or we were able to procure 700 square lots with two structures. We have the training area, we have the hall where we do workshops and conferences can be occupied by 40 people. We have a space for the exhibit. We have a space for performances, especially at night. And we have a garden where the youth, the members can meet and discuss all things related to culture and the arts. Next, please. Concerning sustainability, by reinventing strategies and programs, we have to develop, extend our network. We have to strengthen our network with the teachers, considering that art is a language of education. We strengthened our partnership with the teachers, artists. So we have the 7 Balikhaing Guro International. It is on its 7th year. And then we have a partnership with different cultural groups doing different contemporary approaches in doing theater or performances. And we call it the Likandula International Arts Exchange and Collaboration. Next. As part of sustainability, especially sa panahon ng pandemic, we came up with the Pangatnigan online open microphone. So it's an online performances. We invite you to contribute and share their new materials in the context of present realities. And then we strengthened our workshop and we came up with a national workshop series on intangible cultural heritage-based learning resources. Next, please. We coordinate with women. We come up with Tahan, a gathering of women forming a network of women affected by the so-called pandemic. And then we have international partnership. There's an interactive online show that we do in partnership with the Colorado group, Filipinos in the what they call this, the different Filipino communities in Colorado. So yung pong damit. Next. And our theme has always been heritage, history, environment, and rights. We think through our Paragos regular performance season, we still maintain that we should come up with the productions that tackle, depict social issues and concerns and the rights of different sectors, the workers, the peasants, and other marginalized sectors of the community. Next. Now, based on our content, if you ask us, based on our content, practice, and pedagogy, how can this contribute to the shaping of the Academy of Philippine Theater? There are three questions na we think should be answered in relation to this. What should be the nature of the Academy? What difference will it make to artists and the communities? And how can it contribute to the development of people's lives? So we need to have a critical perspective, critical collaboration and representation in every engagement that we do with different sectors and especially with different organizations. So we think that these are the things that we have to consider. In an academic, could we develop creative and critically engaged Filipino artists? Can artists be capable of producing culturally rooted works of excellence and relevance, mga dulang may silbi, may kabuhulugan sa komunidad at makakatulong sa kanilang ganap na pagunlad? Can this academy instill the core values in using theater performances to develop and empower communities? Maraming pagkakataon na sa iba't ibang mga paaralan nakapagpalitaw tayo ng mga alagad ng sining, pero hindi ito bumabalik sa komunidad. Paano natin matitiyak na makakabalik siya sa kanyang komunidad at makakatulong siya sa ganap na pag-unlad ng komunidad kung gusto rin natin that artist industry will really flourish in different communities of the Philippines. Next, please. What should be the content and methodology of the Philippine Academy? I think there should be a convergence with the national and regional theater and performances. Halimbawa na lang, there are a lot of researches na ginawa tungkol sa sarsuela at saka sa komedya. But come to think of it, marami pa rin practice na something distinct the way the Quezon, the Infanta people will do, the Quezon will do their komedya, including the Ilocanos, how they do their sarsuela. Here in Southern Tagalog, the komedya na dating nag-flourish noong 1980s, pwedeng paggalawan ng mga karanasan at ipagtagpo sa karanasan na sinulat na at nilagom ng mga karanasan pambansa. Second, I think there's a need to curricularize on the diverse practice. Marami tayong iba't ibang karanasan. Ang artist, sa katunayan, meron siyang dinevelop, inarticulate niya ang kanyang karanasan dun sa kanyang larangan ng teatro o yung kanyang what we call the theater practices of artists. We call it the bola sa kilikili that involves the community. And then Sining Banwa has its hubad na tanghalan. The BK, Barasing Kalinangan, is a long history of developing professional community theater, their practice of theater work, and the Cordillera to the DKK. In fact, in terms of paggawa ng mga curriculum o syllabus, ang artist has developed 10 short courses na binibigay niya taon-taon sa kanyang mga partners and network. Third, we have to strengthen the research. Malaking bagay that we focus on research, emphasize the value of doing the research to still enrich our experiences na dapat ma-curricularize. Fourth, we have to develop different modalities of delivering courses. How shall we do this? Paano nga ba ipapatupad ito? Shall we launch a diploma course? Shall we come up with a college degree? But it's a big challenge. Of course, we have to deal with CHED. And of course, it could be for high school. But again, either we complement or talk again with other schools doing arts training or arts activities or arts program like PHSA, and I suppose there will be a special program for the arts and high school program for iba't ibang regions. So we have to talk with them. What shall we do? How to complement with them? How to do with them? So all these things have to be considered in developing the different modalities of delivery of courses. Also, malaga palagi ko sa development ng pedagogy, yung immersion, how our young artists would emerge to the reality of our network, of our practices in the regions, that it could embrace what we really mean by Philippine culture and arts. Next, there should be a system of accreditation and partner and collaborate with existing organizations or institutions like artists, BK, and the rest, especially if these organizations have the capacity or infrastructure that can be utilized. Next, please. What should be the structure what should be the structure, physical and human look like for the academy? Well, I think there should be a partnership with local institutions and organizations. There should be a critical collaboration and representation. Paano nga ba titignan ng mga bagay-bagay ng gawain? Ikalawa, regionalization of the program. It's not centralized na isang training center lang, but we could have partners sa region na nagsasagawa na rin ng mga training. In fact, ang artist meron tinatawag na school art, we call it the Sanay Sining Art School, as we do regularly annual summer training. Same with other groups in Bicol and same in other groups in Pangasinan and Bulacan. Third, we should have the policy consultation, regular policy consultation with community of artists and stakeholders. Fourth, there should be a resource sharing, artist network, private and public organization, sharing experiences. Sa palagay ko, hindi lang naman the expertise which the local artists can share. Meron silang mga infrastructure that we can tap and we can use and we can do their training sa mga lugar na ito. Gaya na banggit ko, in artists, we have launched already the Artist Inc. Center. Next, please. So this is our practice, the practice of Artists Incorporated in relation to the network of Luzon in respect to other practices in Luzon from Region 1 to Region 5 and the Autonomous Region. Our tagline, Making Arts Work. Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon.
Maraming salamat po, Edward Perez ng Artist Inc. sa 3 dekadang malawak na karanasan na naipamahagi ngayong hapon. Ang susunod ko pong ipakilala ay matatawag kong teacher ng bayan, Roberto Bobet Mendoza. Si Bobet Mendoza ay isang nagtayo at artistic director ng Haraya Artist Ensemble ng Manila Taytana Colleges at founding chair ng Guro sa Sining ng Bayan Incorporated at ng Alyansa ng mga magagawang pangkultura sa Kamaynilaan at Karatig Puok. Honed by his experience as a worker from Rubber World Adidas and leader of Teatro Publica, Bobet developed his artistic experience as a musical composer, director, writer by studying at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and engaging in various community work among the labor and education sector. He finished his Bachelor of Arts, Philippine Studies, major in Anthropology and Creative Writing, and Master of Arts, Philippine Studies, and is now working on its PhD in Creative Writing in Filipino. He has composed songs for various plays such as Taya, Teacher ng Bayan, Palaka sa Balon, Hello, Healthy Goodbye, Dumi, among others. His jingles and advocacy songs have found their way to communities through various institutions, including the UNICEF. Hello, Healthy Goodbye, Dumi, Department of Health, You for You, and Meron Ako, and the UP Felbox, Handa, Awit, Lindol. His works as a director, musical composer, and songwriter has been recognized by the Gapas Foundation, Anvil Awards, the Quill Awards, and the Aliw Awards Foundation. Sa kasalukuyan, si Teacher Bobet ay Chair ng Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Manila Titana Colleges at Direktor ng kanilang Cultural Affairs Office. Si Teacher Bobet ay nakaupo bilang kasapi ng Executive Committee of the National Committee on Dramatic Arts, National Commission for Culture and the Arts. Mga kaibigan, si Ginoong Bobet Mendoza.
Magandang hapon. Salamat, Bundo, sa iyong pagpapakilala. Hayaan niyo munang sabihin sa inyo ito. 28 taon ng karanasan, pagyakap sa sinimulan, ang batis ng ibabahaging pag-aaral at kaisipan. 28 taon puno ng hamon, sakripisyo at pagsisikap ng tindig sa pagganap ay dumalisay at pumanday sa tindig sa pagganap upang tunay na pagbabago makamit, matupad. Okay, experience po ang aking i-share, makakatay sa aking karanasan, at yung paghawak sa kung ano yung nasimulan hanggang ngayon ay pinanghahawakan. Ang title po ay, ang pamagat ay Paghahabi sa laban ng katipunan at karanasan. Hayaan niyo simulan ito sa isang bahagi ng karanasan. Ito po, ayaw pong umandar. Wait lang po. Ayan. Okay, hayaan niyo po na simulan natin ito. Bakit po the second annual Dramatic Arts no November 11, 15, 1993? Okay. Ayan. Importante po yung project background because in 1992, yung project background, sinabi na the 1993 Congress ay magsisilbing parang transition period, no? And planning, no? Planning ng pagbubuo o pagsasaayos ng mga NCCA program and plans. Okay? Next. Ayan. Isa yung salita po na hobby, ayan, dati lang sinabi sa kongresong ito through tatananding o Sept, no? Yan, talagay po yung concept ng weave together our own roots. Okay? Next po ay, ayan po yung mga dumalo doon sa Luzon. Ayan, sa Luzon po, sa Visayas naman po, ayan din po, kasama yung mga kasama natin, ayan, yung iba ay active pa rin, iba po ay malangit nawa. Ayan po, isa pong kasama natin dito, andyan pa ay si Perez. Ayan po yung ating pong mag-synthesize sa ating mamaya, si Perez. Ayan. Tapos po sa NCR, ayan po, kasama po si Mr. Edward Perez sa NCR noon. Ayan, bugkos po ang kanyang representasyon. At ayan din po ako, si Bobet po, yung Teatro Pabrika po ang aking representasyon. Kasama po kami sa NCR, saka si Beng Santos Cabango ng PETA. Okay, ayan po ang ating mga speaker during the time. Si Dr. Chongson, Brenda Fajardo, Apo Chua, Doreen Fernandez, Malu Jacob, Cecil Guidote Alvarez. Ayan, ito po yung 7 years development plan. lalagyan ko po ng marka at mamay babalikan natin. Yan po, yung concept ng parang tinatawag nating legislation, parang gano'n yan, in a way. No? Parang pagbubuo ng realization ng tinatawag na national law on culture. Tama po yan. And then yung development ng ano po, parang scheme, organizational scheme, connected po yan. Importante ang organisasyon, yan, para makonsolidate din ang mga networks. At syempre ito po, the creation of National Theater, ayan, theater school. At yung iba naman ay sinasabi po na, ayun, the national parang course for high school. Ito naman po ay yung pagkakaroon po ng groupings. Paano nagkaroon, particular sa NCR, ng groupings po o parang collaboration in a way, grouping. No? Meron pong meron pong tinatawag tayong school-based, meron pong community-based, meron pong sectoral, yung time na yan ay dyan ako kasama, professional groups po. Yan. Ngayon, ano po ang nangyari? Yan, noong 1993, parang ito po yung muka, no? Sa NCR. Of course, meron mga professional, may mga sectors, iba-ibang sectors kasama ang workers, okay, mga tiga-community, ayan po itsura. Ibig sabihin talagang medyo loose yung organization. Pero po, pagpasok po 1996, ayan po, no? Ito natin inorganize dahil batay doon sa sinasabi natin kanina na napagkaisahan noong pang 1993 and even before pa nga. Kaya tinayo po yung ALYANSA Incorporated noong October 17, 1997. At sa bahagi po naman ng professional, nabuo po yung field stage. Yan. At yan po ay nagbunga ng tinatawag nating mga activities na na-involve, no? Noong 1996 to 2004, buhay po ang ugnayan kahit sabihin natin merong parang hati, pero hindi po yan nangangahulugan na totally walang ugnayan. Sa kilosining, ganap at eksena eskwela, ang aming mga mentors, no, at ang aming iniimbita para mag-facilitate o tumulong sa artistic aspect ng aming mga produksyon ay galing po sa mga professional. At kaya kami naman po ay madalas na imbitahan ng field stage sa kanilang program na buhay. Ito po ay mga performances nila na sama-sama yung mga field stage. Yan. Ito po yung listahan, no, na connected do sinasabi na pag-oorganisa ng alyansa. Nagsimula, balikan ko lang konti. Yan. Lista ng mga dula, yun yung starting point, 1997 po na mga ginagawa namin. And then, yung big production agad namin ay yung ganap. No? Ito yung balik 6 na buwan. Actually, isang taon nga halos yun. No? Yung ginawa namin sa Quezon Memorial Hotel. Okay, eksena eskwela na parang ito yung parang pattern ng tanghal. At yung pilosining na bawat districts ay ginagawa na po na nagagawa kami ng mga parang festival, research doon sa Kamaynilaan. Ayan po, yun po yung ganap doon sa Quezon City Circle. Ayan. At ito po, noong 2001, yung konsepto po ng pambansamahang panteatro ay naging tema na po yan. Yan po ay sa panunungkulan, panahon po namin nila Sorvilla, noong time na yan, ay na-conceptualize na yan, nagkaroon na po ng research yan, nagkaroon po ng parang tinatawag na committee-initiated project na talagang ito ay kailangan. No? Kaya doon sa NCR, ayan po, nag-assembly kami doon, sama-sama, pati professional during the time, para buuin. At taga-agree naman na itayo yung isang pambansang samahang panteatro. Dahil sa mga kinakarap na problema, okay, ay talaga namang mula sa economic hanggang cultural aspect, political aspect, kailangan tumindig ang mga cultural workers, ang mga artista. Kaya yung konsepto talaga ng NTO during that time ay mainit na tinatanggap. Noong 1997, nabuo po at pinaprubahan ng Committee on Dramatic Arts ang paper, no? Paper tungkol sa pagbubuo ng pambansang samahang panteatro 1997. Ito po ay hanggang 2011, ito po ay sa ilalim po ni Gardy Labad. Ito yung mga dahilan. No? Una, yung kumpas, kailangan isang kumpas, persa, artista. Pangalawa, matibay na samahan versus globalization. Kasi alam naman natin na yung globalization ay hanggang ngayon ay lumala pa sa ating pagka-Pilipino. no? Kaya importante, nakita na po yan. Pangatlo, support system at kolaborasyon. At pang-apat ay ang pagsusulong ng batas na may kinalaman sa sining at kultura. Okay, pero nagkaroon po ng medyo pagkabalaho ang concept ng NTO at sinabi naman na gawin na lang daw po muna to sa hanay ng mga mag-aaral dahil po meron pong tanghal na during that time. Kaya po ang National Universities and Colleges Theater Organization ay naging pangunahing paraan, no? Sabi ay para itayo yung NTO, parang stepping stone muna, panimulang paraan, no? The committee initiated project of CDA, resolution sa konferensya bahagi ng Tanghal 3 sa Laguna, Pebrero 2009, unang hakbang tungo sa pagbuo ng pambansang samahan theater. Okay? Ngayon, ayan, nagkaroon na po ng presentation paano pa gagawin yan kasi nga using the parang ano bang meron sa sistema ng edukasyon. Siyempre, meron DepEd at CHED. Siyempre, may administration, pero meron mga existing theater groups. At yung mga theater groups, siyempre, pagkatapos, may alumni. Pero minsan, ang problema, pagka-graduate na, di na maituloy yung mga theater works, no? Kaya importante yung theater groups para sa mga estudyante at yung alumni ay dapat merong tinatawag na community involvement, no? At dito papasok yung malaking role sana ng mga advisors at artistic directors, no? Yun yung importante dito upang maisakatuparan ang tukto. Okay, para i-revitalize ang arts in the educational system. Yan. Pero ano nangyari? Tinuloy naman natin yan. Okay? Towards inyong layunin. No? Tapos ay tinuloy naman natin at nagawa ang NUCTU sa noong September 27 o 26, 2011 sa University of Makati. Okay, meron pang nabuong mga values, no? Kaya lang ang mga dumating dito ay panay kabataan. Dito tandaan kong speaker dito ay si Joel Lamangan. No? Isa sa pangunahing speaker dito. Nabuo naman ang NUCTU. Ayan po, yung mga leaders doon sa NUCTU na yan, no? Pero sa proseso, ayan, ay anong nangyari, mas yung tanghal ang mas naging pangunahing lusaran din ng alyansa sa initial na konsepto ng pagtatayo ng NUCTU, particular sa NCR, NUCTU, NCR, sila yung nakatulong alyansa. Pero sa pagtagal, hindi na rin po, nawala na rin po, no? Hindi natuloy kasi siyempre, katulad ng original na konsepto, ang dapat ay kasama ang mga advisors and artistic directors. Kaya siyempre, pag nakagraduate na yung mga bata, hindi na rin magpa-function. Buti na lamang po sa NCR, nandun yung alyansa, nasasalo po namin yung mga leader ng mga batang estudyante at sila po ngayon ay membro na ng individual members. No? Ayan, tapos nagkaroon po ang alyansa ng ito mga naging parang pag inaral niyo po, talagang nagkakaroon ng konsepto ng yung alyansa, mga projects na niya ay panay towards networking, organizing, at pambansa yung saklaw. Kaya yung unang pambansang konferensya po na ginawa sa CCP, yung Estetika ng Dula sa Pilipinas, September 27, 29, 2011 sa Cultural Center of the Philippines. Ito po yung tanghali ng tanghalan. Tapos po, dito po, piniresent ko ang isang pag-aaral, bunga na po doon sa sinasabing medyo nabalaho nga, no? Ano ba nangyari? Bakit nga ba inaaral? Bakit nga ba ang networking and organizing ay parang hindi madulas? Samantalang plano na to dati pa, bakit parang ang hirap, no? Siyempre, inisip natin na aralin. Ito yung batay na rin doon sa mga resulta noong tanghali ng tanghalan at iba pang mga pag-aaral. Nakita natin na historical, no? Panahon ni Marcos, panahon ng before EDSA, yung concept ng kilusan, may kilusang kultural, mga bayan, kultura ng pagbabago. Kaya naging popular ito. No? Kaya pagpasok ng EDSA Revolution, okay, yan yung isang magandang aralin. Ano nangyari after EDSA Revolution? Ayan. Okay, yung PCP, open sa publiko. natayo ang NCCA at yung iba na nandun sa kilusan ay siyempre nandun sa akademya at sa mga local government. Ganyan ang itsura. Ibig sabihin, yung iba-iba ang naging priorities at parang pinuntahan ng ating yung iba naman napunta dito, siyempre pumasok yan. No? Sa iba, pumasok na sa showbiz, no? Diyan napunta yung ibang mga artista natin, mga cultural workers. Ayan. At siyempre, sa panahon na yan, tumindi ang globalisasyon. Okay. At nilamon at nangibabaw ang kulturang popular at globally competitive. Okay? Ibig sabihin, after EDSA Revolution, magandang tingnan at pag-aralan siguro anong role nito ng EDSA Revolution, no? Mula sa isang kilusang kultural na naghahangad ng pagbabago. Ang tawag natin ngayon ay social transformation. Ano nangyari? What happened? Pinasa po na atin pong discuss yan doon sa tanghalian ng tanghalan during that time. Okay? At konektado din po itong sinasabi natin, yung pong nasa taas ay mga konsepto po, no? Organization, and siyempre, yun, yung nananaig ay competition at yung mga concept na, siyempre, yung pananaig ng self, no? Tapos yung Broadway, yung artistic, exotic, siyempre, yung orientation. Kailangan may pera ba dyan? Siyempre, di ba? May pera ba dyan? Sikat ba ako dyan? Ganyan. Ito yung nananaig. Yan yung common, no? Kung sabihin, nananaig. Hindi ako sinasabi kung sino yan. Basta may nananaig. At yung concept na nasa baba, ito po yung konsepto pa rin na bunga noong kilusang kultural. No? Pinagpapatuloy, kolektibo, kapwa, tradisyonal, makabayan, lokalisasyon, serbisyo, advokasya. Kaya yun nasa taas, naging inyong batayan na siguro masasabi natin na mayorya ng mga kabataang nagti-theater ngayon, doon tumitingin sa taas. Kasi yun yung standard. Okay. I'm preparing po siguro sa kabuuan, sa aming karanasan dito sa Metro Manila. Okay. At yan po yung tinatawag nating democratic space. Kasi nagtatawiran, nagtatagusan po yan. Minsan hindi natin ma-distinguish yung mga nasa canon, standard, yung dominant, nagpapalabas naman sila ng mga issue ng kahirapan din. No? At ito namang mga nasa baba minsan, okay, yung mga nasa sector at mga kabataan, ang gusto naman nila ipalabas yung mga palabas na pinapalabas yung mga nagpapalabas ng standard. No? Ayan. Ngayon, tinuloy ko po iyan uli. No? Muli nating ipinresent yan sa sikat ng dulang Pilipino. Ang sikat ng dulang Pilipino, November 27 hanggang 29 sa UP Diliman. No? Diyan po kasama natin sila Dr. Lumbera, sila Dr. Chongson, at na-present po ang papel. Okay, sumunod. Ito pong huli ay nagkaroon uli, pinangunahan po sa tulong ng CCP, of course, program CCP, pero ang na-involve po dito, ang ALYANSA, siyempre sa pangungunan ni Dr. Glesio Atienza, siya po yung nanguna dito sa konferensyang ito, at ang pinap naman dito ay yung mga hindi natin normally nakakasama. Ito yung mga maliliit na organization pangkultural at nagulat din po kami talaga. Ang dami pala. No? Bukod doon sa mga kilala nating network, ang dami-dami. Kaya po yan, no? Yung concept talaga na ginagawa na program at mga layunin, sabi nga kanina ay napo-force kaya ang alyansa para patungong national level yung kanyang mga pinaplano. Hindi natin masasagot, siguro din. At yan po yung resulta, no? Ayan, nakakatuwa na napakadami po. Napakadami. Okay. Ayan, ito na po yung aking konsepto. Yung paghahabi, yung talaban ng katipunan at karanasan. Po yan. Okay, ang paghahabi ay proseso ng produksyon. Ayan. Ano nga ba ang proseso ng produksyon? Okay, proseso ng produksyon ay meron kang pagmumulan. Okay, yung pagpapasulpot ng material mula pagtatanim, pagtuklas, invention, siyempre involved yung magsasaka, magtawa. Pero iyan, ipoproseso mo pa. Okay, kung ano yung material na gusto mo, kailangan may proseso. Pagkagawa, intellectual ang involved. At siyempre, pagbubuo nito na iprosesong material ayon sa gamit at layunin. Pagdisenyo hanggang pagbubuo. At nabubuo yung tinatawag natin kasanayan at kalaman. Isang proseso to na tuloy-tuloy na dapat makinabang pa rin, pati yung pinagmula. Okay? At sa proseso, dapat nating makita ang halaga ng relasyon at ugnayan. Okay? Relasyon at ugnayan. sa production ay napaka-importante. Ngayon, kung iyan ay paghahabi, ganun din, no, gagamitin natin the same pattern. Mula din do sa pinag-ulan, kung ito'y abaka, siyempre magsasaka at manggagawa, yung kasama yung community, at sa pagpuproseso nito ay yung konsepto ng paglulubid, pagkukulay, pagputol, pagkayas, pagbabad, etc. May proseso kang dadaanan bago ito buuin. Okay? Involved din ang mga manggagawa, komunidad, at yung sa proseso ng pagbubuo ay yung mga maghahabi. Okay? Kaya sa paghahabi, importante po ito, no? Na proseso na dapat natin. Again, ang importante ay ang tinatawag nating relasyon sa produksyon. Ngayon, ito. Mapapansin nyo iba-ibang shape kung saan ang galing. Okay? I-assume natin na ito ay iba't ibang karanasan. Bidistuloy ako. Kasi po ay tanong, mahahabi kaya itong iba't ibang shapes na ito? Siguro hindi. Mahirap habiin yan. Kailangan, kung habiin yan, dapat dumaan sa proseso. Anong proseso yun? Dapat ganyan. Kailangan dumaan sila. No? Kailangan sila na okay, ang paghahabi na yan, ayan. O kailangan putulin, kailangan panipisin para mabuo ang paghahabi. Isang proseso ng karanasan para mabuo ang kamalayan. Okay. So, malapit na po. Okay. Ito po yung sabi kong talaban. Yung katipunan, meaning organisasyon o samahan na siyang titingin, no? At magbabantay. Yan. Para sa balanse na pagpapatakbo o pagsisinop nitong karanasan. Importante po yan. Kaya, okay, ang paghahabi ay talaban ng katipunan at karanasang magluluwal ng kamalayan. KKK po yan. KKK. At dyan, papasok ang role ng akademya. Okay? Ibig sabihin, may malaking kinalaman akademya upang papalabas ang kamalayan batay sa pagpupunyagi ng mga katipunan at pag-aayos, pagpapanday ng karanasan. Okay. Madaling salita, ito na po yung aking huli. Pagbabalik tanaw, ayan po yun. No? Yung aking minarkahan kanina, ayan, may resulta naman po. No? Yung sa Department of Education, nagkaroon ng SPA. Sa CHED, ay nagkaroon naman po ng resolution na dapat merong PAW office o Culture and Arts office po. Okay, yung development ng organization, kanina sinimulan natin doon sa unang papel, doon 7-year plan na 1993. Yan po yung katipunan, organization po yan, saka karanasan, yung pong consolidate, no? Yung consolidate pati yung karanasan. At yung sinasabi natin ngayon, yung creation of National Theater School and National Program, ay ito po yung tinatawag natin ngayon, na sabihin natin, academia, connected yan sa academia. Sabihin, meron na talagang ganyang mga plan. Babalik natin, yan po yung kanina. Okay, sa huli, ang paghahabi, buo ang prosesong ito ng paglikha. Kung mayroong dulo, tiyak may simula. Alay ang sarili at lakas pagawa, kasama ang iba, kapwa manggagawa. Ugnayang matibay ay hawak at yakap, hindi bibitawan anuman ng maganap. Paghilat, pagtulak, pasulong paatras, ang bawat tagpuan ay buhol ng ganas. Mga hiblat kulay, siya ring ganda't tibay, ng gagawing damit at kumot ng buhay. Panangga sa init, pamawi ng ginaw, pananda at marka upang di maligaw. Ang tunay na akademya sa dulaan ay matapagtatagumpayan kung may pagsusuri sa karanasan, pagkakatuto sa kaaral ng kasaysayan, pagtanggap sa kahinaan at kalakasan, pagpapatibay ng pananagutan, pagpapanday ng kasanayan at pananalig at pagsandig sa prinsipyadong samahan na siyang magluluwal ng pambansang kamalayan, pambansang pagkakakilanlan. Sining ay isabuhay, balikan ng kasaysayan ng hindi maligaw sa patutunguhan. Sining ng buhay, gawing ganap. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Maraming salamat.
Teacher Bobet, maraming salamat po. Isang karangalan na naging kabahagi ako kahit pamandalian sa pagtalakay ng pagbuo ng National Theater Organization. Padayon kita. Ang atong sunod nga mamumulong o speaker, taga General Santos. Liwan kung dili si Romeo Narvaez. Si Romy Narvaez, ang kanyang trabaho sa larangan ng dulaan ay nakatutok sa tema ng kapayapaan. Siya ay naging miyembro ng Mindanao State University Cambayoca Ensemble sa ilalim ng pamumuno ni Frank Rivera at ni Edgardito Riconalla. Siya ay na-expose sa iba't ibang kasapi ng Mindanao Community Theater Network or MINDULANI. Ayon kay Romy, yanura gayod ang akong background. Walang award, dili National Artist Medallion, dili expert, walay PhD, dili ginaimbita mo sulti og paminawon sa uban, yanura kay ako ang kusog maminaw sa uban. Mga higala atong paminawon si Romy Narvaez.
Sir Romy, are you there? Sir Romy?
Yes. Ay, nakalimut ako. Sorry. Okay. Marinig na? Okay. Mayong hapon, mayong adlaw sa tanan. If you look at the title, Hulagway sa Mindulani, MCTN Mindulani, o ang iyang Hulagway sa Misantub sa akong handurawan. Biyahe, this is talking about ang biyahe ko sa Mindanao. Let me start. The first time, una ako nakakita ng pasundayag na siguro matawag to mao ang teatro. Di na gyud ko ka-remember kung pilang akong edad during that time. Basta sigurado lamang ako na I was still very, very young then. Puno kaayo ang among simbahan sa Dipolog City. Pero I found myself in the middle of the church. Nakaupo ako, syempre. Pero nakuratan ako, nashock ako. Kasi doon sa baba, 3 steps below the altar sa among simbahan, adunay pasundayag. Unya, dunay usa ka gwapo na aktor nga nag-perform, nakasutana siya sa pare. Pagkatapos, hinarap niya kami sa audience. Kunwari, or hindi kunwari, parang ang feeling ko at that time, I was very, very young then, na appeal yun kami sa naitabo sa altar. Dayon, nagsugod ang misa. Nakuratan ko atong klase nga presentation kasi ang feeling ko, sumpay ang misa sa pasundayag nga nahitabo. Katong nag-perform na gwapo nga actor, that was Father Dong Galinsoga. Gwapo kayo na actor na pari di ay. In my mind, at that time, theater di ay ito. Pero sa paminaw ko, murag apil man kami adto sa pasundayag. Siguro, masama lang siguro ang pakiramdam ko at that time. Para sa ako, mauto ang unang milagro sa teatro nga nahitabo sa ako. Ang unang nagbago sa aking kaisipan, may tungod sa teatro, ay ang kambayoka yun. Ang kambayoka sa panahon ni Frank G. Rivera. I believe I was still very, very young then. And I was in the audience watching the production Si Pilandok. Si Pilandok yung una kong napanood. So that will be the second production in my life nga napanood ko. At nagulat ako, nakuratan ako, dahil ang ilang ulan ay ginunting na newspaper nga nagabitay sa usa ka taas-taas na PC. Unya, idagan kini papunta sa audience hanggang doon sa pinakalikod part sa audience and ibalik sa front and then nawala. In my mind, sa akong hunahuna, buki ang kambayoka. Newspaper, ulan, buki to the highest degree. But I became part of Kambayoka and I am in theater until now. Example, kung unsay gibag-o, anong binago sa akong hunahuna about theater. What I'm going to share now is only one of those changes nga nangyari sa akin. At itong i-share ko, hindi pa ganun ka-importante. Before, I could not believe that a group can perform sa loob ng sabungan, on top of the arena ng sabungan. I could not believe that we can perform sa loob ng free ward ng Philippine General Hospital. Sa loob ng munting lupa, yung prisuhan, ay, as far as I can remember, parang 3 times kong na-experience yun. At nakita ko pa doon yung tatay ni Paps Fernandez. Nakaperform kami sa loob ng sinihan at katabi ko ang commander ng Lost Command in Agusan del Sur talking about peace and Marcos martial law. Ang pinaka-unique na performance space nga natikman namin ay nag-perform kami sa gilid ng isang elementary classroom doon sa elevated ground kung saan itatanim ang mga plants to beautify a rural classroom. At that time, wala pang plants na naitanim, kaya we were able to perform on that space. I asked myself, pwede pala ang ganito? Performance on any space? Pag itanong ko yan ulit, maririnig ko ang boses ni Frank G. Rivera. Ito yung madalas sasabihin niya, have a space and perform. Of course, hindi yan ang boses ni Frank. Of course, sinabi niya ang linya na yon in Tagalog. Isa lang yun sa mga doktrina ni Frank G. Rivera. Mahilig talaga si Frank sa mga ganyan. Kaya ang sabi ko noon about sa amin, mga kambayoka, ang kambayoka nag-perform from Gantimpala Hall at Little Theater, Culture Center of the Philippines, to Tondo, to hospitals, to Women's Correctional Hall. The productions yung nadala namin doon. Ha? Na-unplug yung audio? Okay.
You're okay, Romy.
I'm okay. Mahilig talaga si Frank Rivera sa mga ganyan. Ang sabi ko noon about sa amin, mga kambayoka, ang kambayoka ay nag-perform from Gantimpala Hall, Pusing Batutin na ngayon, at Little Theater, Culture Center of the Philippines, to Tondo, to hospitals, to Women's Correctional Hall, at marami pa. May I ask you all, nakaperform na kayo sa loob ng palengke, doon sa gitna mismo? I'm sure hindi pa. Pag i-announce ang schedule ng mga performances namin in those kind of places, makita ko sa mukha at ngiti ni Frank Rivera na gusto niya talaga yon. Para sa kanya ay achievement yon. Ano ba ang idea o hulagway na anaa sa inyong hunahuna bahin sa isang theater artist? Diba social? Dapat sa Culture Center of the Philippines and its clones, dito lang mag-perform. Ang CCP ang ginawang target, dream, corona, para meron tayong maipagyabang sa mga probinsyano. Sa amin, during those days with Frank Rivera, ewan, basta kami noon, from CCP to Damasa, ang aming direksyon. Konting performances sa CCP, maraming performances sa masa. So sadyang ako na ang director ang grupo diri sa General Santos City, ang Kapapagarya, perform din sila sa Sabungan in Batangas yata. Yun, I forgot. Sa isang dialysis center, sa Terminal Bus Bay, this is in Digos, sa isang barangay ng mga Badyaw in Jensen na malapit sa dagat. Imagine ang mga bato, buhangin, at kalaban pa ang sound of the waves against the dialogues of the cast. Some of the cast, misuong pa, di ako kabalo magtagalog sa misuong pa sa ilalim ng mga bahay ng mga Badyaw. Then, lalabas ang dalawang higante behind houses. Perform din sa kabukiran ng Sarangani at 2 a.m. kasi we have to wait for the blaan to be done with their rituals. Kung masulti ka mo na dili na teatro, ambot lang, dili ng good expert ang tanaw ko sa ako ang kaugalingon. Basta mauna ang among ginahimo. On the second generation, ang Kambayo ka manggod doon na apat ka administration. The first one is with Frank G. Rivera. The second one is with Edgarito Riconalia. The third is with Sunny Noel. And the present one is with Pipito Sumayan. The second administration, the time of Edgarito Riconalia came. Dito sa second administration ng Kambayoka, ang Kambayoka mismo nag-change ng kanyang direction. It opened its doors and was willing to meet the rest of Mindanao, to meet MCTN or Mindulani na karon. MCTN is Mindanao Community Theater Network. Mindulani is ani ng Dulang Mindanao. Bata pa rin ako during those days. Ang unsa ang hulagway, what is the picture nga naa sa kong nahuna when Kambayoka and Mindulani nagtagbo? I imagine two rivers nga nagtagbo. Siyempre, pag magtagbo ang duha kasuba or river or ilog, adunay clash. Siyempre, pag clash, ang clash nagsimula gid na siya sa sumpaki. Sumpaki is, debate, na sumpaki, debate. Ang miabot pag yun yung sumpaki na yon sa violent level na almost magsinumbagay na Kambayoka versus others. That Kambayoka. Pero, at the end of it, alam naman natin ngayon that Kambayoka is part of Mindulani. Magkaiba ang estilo nila, pamaraan, materyales, o hulma. But they come to understand each other and recognize that at the bottom line, the two rivers have the same vision and direction. Regularly, Edgarito Riconalia joined MCTN Mindulani series of meetings and discussions. Dili na lang na ako i-mention mention ang mga names sa mga participants kung sino yung mga kasama doon sa mga caucus. Kasi I was very, very young then. In many of those discussions or occasions, I was asked to come along by Edgarito Riconalia. And I was there to watch performances. Iyon lang kasi ang gusto ko. Hindi ako kasali sa mga magdamagan at walang katapusang discussions. Unsa ko, bright? Sila-sila lang na. Unsang hulagway sa Mindulani sa akong personal handurawan. Ang MCTN Mindulani also changed my ideas of theater. Ang orientation sa MCTN Mindulani ay ma-feel mo lamang sa hangin. I can feel it every time I joined Edgarito Riconalia in Butuan City, Davao City, in Cotabato areas. Ang feeling ko ay parang hangin na umiikot sa akin at binalutan ako, parang gift wrap, pero hindi external, but internal ang tama sa akin. At sa aking pagsama-sama kay Edgarito Riconalia, MCTN Mindulani made me feel that theater ay hindi lamang palabas. Actually, Ako ngayon, hirap na hirap ako ngayon to find a word. I need a term to articulate the thoughts that I have in my mind. MCTN Mindulani showed me a theater that integrates itself in the community. I do not know if the term integrate is appropriate. One of those times which I witnessed at EDCADS in Butuan City, Rolando Arban was having a conversation with his performers, cultural workers. I saw big kalderos, big luwag. Dadalhin nila ang yon sa mga farmers dahil ang theater nila ay nasa mga farmers. For me, those were big words that spark my imagination. Theater ug mga mag-uuma. Hala, ang theater misaka sa bukid ug miadto sa mag-uuma. Unluckily, I was not invited to the farms. That particular scene, I cannot erase it from my handurawan. It gave me an enigmatic idea of theater. In fact, ngayon ko lang i-share itong eksena na ito. In Davao City, MCTN Mindulani ay talagang center ito na pinupuntahan ng maraming sectors. I saw, ito yung nakita ko, matured women na doon na pa'y buyon, mga kabataan. I heard them talk about agdaw, which is almost like tondo, mga simbahan, mga eskwelahan, at marami pa. Hindi ba totoo na ang ordinarily nilapitan ang theater para imbitahon lamang, para malingaw ang mga tao sa hotel sa isang gathering sa kasalan. Pero dito sa MCTN Mindulani, iba ang hulagway or picture sa akong naobserbahan. Ang hulagway sa teatro ay naka-integrate sa katilingban, sa katawhan. Hulagway sa teatro nga gigakus sa katawhan. I don't know, someone can translate that. Mas maganda kasi yung Cebuano. Sigurado ako na hindi pera ang rason why they come to MCTN Mindulani office. Alam ko naman walang pera ang MCTN Mindulani. Para sa akin, ang highlight ng theater practice at cultural work in Mindanao ay ang pag-integrate ng kaliwat with the Manobo in Arakan Valley. I had tete-a-tete this with Eden, a Kambayoka and part of Kaliwat. Itong i-share ko sa inyo, hindi ito alam ni Nestor. Wala itong permission. Ang sabi ni Eden sa akin, alam mo, Kuya Romy, maghanap pa ako ng kalabaw. Bibili ako ng kalabaw kasi ito yung kailangan ng mga Manobo sa Arakan Valley. Hindi alam ni Eden na parang strike ng lightning yung statement na yon sa akin. Si Nestor Orfilia would usually talk a lot about lawyers, Department of Agriculture, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and the Manobo. Remember, folks, I was very, very young then. Very, very young then. And those folks did not know that those statements came to me like lightning. Then Kaliwat went to Arakan Valley. Or, I think I should say, Kaliwat lived in Arakan Valley with the Manobo. I don't know what appropriate term should I use to describe their involvement with the community. Of course, Kaliwat came up with theater production. Kasi ang theater production ay parang bunga, fruit, gikan sa tanom nga giugmad ng mga theater artists sa community. I don't know how to capture the Cebuano giugmad. It's very descriptive for me. And the same people working with the community were also the performers on stage. May I ask, ano yun? Tama ba ako na ang theater ay integrated with the community? Not a gang to come a visiting a village. Parang circus good. katulad sa mga napanood ko sa mga American movies, di ba? Darating sila, maghanap ng pera, aalis. Ganun ba ang theater? But iba yung nakita ko sa Kaliwat. I am sure Kaliwat is not like the circus sa mga movie. Actually, may tunay ako na real life experience nito, kaya lang baka may masaktan. Unsa gayud ang hulagway, what should be the picture of theater? MCTN Mindulani showed me what I shared with you today. Is Philippine Theater Academy or Academy Philippine Theater of Philippine Theater be like what I shared with you? Based on some talks that I have heard so far, the easiest imagined answer I think I will receive is this. Of course not. Mali ka. You don't know what theater because you weren't awarded. You are not a national artist. You are not an intellectual. And you were never abroad. And you are not a PhD. Eh kung ganyan, then theater, Academy of Philippine Theater, I am afraid, is going to be an alien. What is wrong with those impressions I had? Siguro, very, very wrong. And may I remind you, I was very, very young then. The very strong orientation I felt during those days na sa aking imagination ay parang hangin ni palibot sa akong kaugalingon. Sa pupo is cuddled ako sa iyang mga bukton. Isang orientasyon na ginatawag ko na vision na rin. O dayon ginatawag ko, yun na rin ang direksyon. Unsa ang direksyon sa teatro? Ang teatro mo paingon og moduyog. Unsa ang direction sa teatro? Ang teatro mo paingon og moduyog sa katilingban sa katawan. Ang teatro dili mugnaon. We will not create theater dahil pupunta tayo sa Republic of Metro Manila o magpasundayag tayo sa Kingdom ng Culture Center of the Philippines para mag-aleluya ang mga tagawog na audience o mga foreigners o himayaon ta hanggang sa langit. Pero sigurado akong mali ako kay wala akong ibang kaagan. Unsang orientasyon, vision, and direction sa Philippine Theater Academy? Dali raman na, kanang orientation, vision, isulat nato na siya. Gusto mo English o Tagalog? Na, glorious ang concept na lalabas. Pareho kaha o mulabaw pa kaha kana sa nakita ko o naobserbahan ko noon sa NCTN. Ay, dili ko kabalo mutubag sa akong sarili na pangutana. Before I stop talking here, in many schools these days, accreditation team comes and would say that institution who wants to get to level 4, dapat ang kanilang institutional extension program ay focus sa isang community. Bring the institution's knowledge and skills to a community in order to have an impact. I keep hearing this now. But this was the same idea or vision or hulagway ng MCTN Mindulani sa huna-huna in the mind of Edgarito Riconalla before he died. Pero Garitoy wanted to have a twist. Gusto niya na kung merong ang isang university magdala ng team, dapat the leader should be the artist. He believes that the artist should be at the center. For the artist is always aware of the environment. He is a culture worker, therefore he knows people and culture. He is a trainer, a teacher, and a facilitator, and he can organize people, and he can do simple, basic research. Sa tanaw na ako, manatiling damgo lamang ang mga naobserbahan ko, ang mga hulagway kong nakuha noon. Kay lahi namang good karon ang mga young leaders. Lahi ang tanaw nila sa unsay, lahi ang tanaw nila sa ilang mga kalihukan. Ginatanaw nila kung ito ay matanggap sa Republic of Manila, kung ito ay online doon sa mga ginagawa sa ibang bansa, align baga? I believe they want to align themselves with what Metro Manila wants and the world in general. I think that is what we call alignment of the planets. Ay, pero I'm sure mali gid ako. Kasi hindi ako naka-align. Therefore, mali ako. Tapuson ko na. Mayong adlaw sa tanan, ako si Romeo Narvaez na hindi align. Anad lang gid ko maminaw sa ubang tao. Balikon na ako. Asa naka-align ang APT, Academy of Philippine Theater. Asa papunta teatro. Parang papunta yata sa world class, sa globalization. Once upon a time, I was at Little Theater watching a production, parang vaudeville yata ang title noon. Someone nakatabi ko, sabi niya, this production tried very hard to meet the standards of Broadway and it failed. It was never any closer to Broadway. Actually, na-shock ako doon sa statement na yun. Because what I saw, para sa akin, na walang alam, what I saw was a character trying hard to be glamorous, but it was not. It was bare, it was raw, it was barren, it was poor. It was the affordable way for poor Pinoy to have a good time. If APT, Asa Paingon Teatro, is going to follow that track, then I feel that particular track, which I feel it is excited and all agog, then we are going to become one of the same kind. Then at the end, what contribution do we have to humanity? Our 18 quality? Tapos na po ang akong minuto. Daghang salamat, mayong adlaw sa tanan.
Daghang salamat by Romy. I was very, very young then also. Teatro kasama ang komunidad. Teatro kahit sa ang sulok ng komunidad. As Romy said, damgo na lang ba ikaw? Daghang salamat usab by Romy. Kag ang katapusan naton nga humalambal o kon speaker amo ang akon kasimanwa. Kaupo sa teatro sa malawig nga panahon sa Negros. Bugal ko nga ginapakilala si Rodolfo Rudy Reveche. Rudy Reveche is the president of TEATROKON, the West Visayas Theater Network, which was established during his term as executive committee member of the Committee of Dramatic Arts of the NCCA from 2001 to 2007. Rudy was the artistic director of the Cantaon Theater Guild from 1990 up to 2015 and of the Cagayan Dance Troupe from 2016 up to 2020. Both groups represented the country in the 2019 Bangkok Theater Festival and under the Performing Arts Scholarship Program of Colegio San Agustin, Bacolod, with him as the Performing Arts Director. Rudy joined the 2017 and 2019 Thailand International Mask Festival with the Mascara Festival Dancers of Bacolod City and also as a solo performer in the 2018 Jinju Mask Dance and Drama Festival in South Korea. Rudy was cited
Go, Rudy.
Mayong hapon sa tanan. I am representing the Western and Central Visayas experience for this session. And kami mga taga-Visayas, napagitna sa dalawang malaking isla, no? Luzon and Mindanao, and we are composed of several islands. So we have different experiences in terms of theater, no? So I would like to present first the theater groups under the Western Visayas Theater Network we call TEATROKON. Next slide, please. Ang TEATROKON came from the word teatro and con for conferencia. This was organized as a TEATROKON Negros in 1993 as part of the Negros Summer Workshop organized by Pequi Galiaga and LC Cosculluela, which started in 1990 and lasted for 17 years. So in the third year, one of the facilitators, si Gabby Fernandez, came up with an idea for us theater groups in Negros to come together and to discuss what could we do as a network, as a provincial network. And so on that year, we were able to gather in Mambucal and was able to invite two icons in the theater scene in Bacolod, mga way back 1950s, no? Si Rodolfo Midel, who is the brother of one of the theater icons in Bacolod, si Luisa Midel Reyes, and Miss Lilia Tacardon. During the time kasi, in the early 60s, La Consolacion College was one of the top school that offers theater work, no? They were well known for staging during the 50th Golden Year, the Noli Me Tangere, and so yun, we were able to gather, and from there on, we were able to come up with several collaborative productions every year. We time it during the Mascara Festival. We came up with the inter-secondary schools play festival and so on. And in 2002, I was then the executive committee member of the Committee on Dramatic Arts. And on November 2 of that year, we were able to gather, no, sa West Visayas. We came up with a meeting. I would remember that day talaga, no, November 2 pa naman, holiday. Pumunta kami ni Tanya Lopez sa Iloilo at the University of San Agustin, and there we met for the first time Alex de los Santos of Antique, Al Tesoro of Capiz, and one representative from Aklan. And from there on, nagkaisa kami to come up with a theater network, and as part of our comprehensive plan is to come up with a festival. So initially we thought na parang laro lang ito. Sabi namin, sige, laro-laro lang ito. We didn't take it seriously until 2003 when we were able to come up with the first regional theater festival and conference. We call it DUAG TEATROKON, which DUAG means Scholars of TEATROKON, hosted by the University of San Agustin, Iloilo. And one of the invited guest we had was Chris Miliado of CCP, who was impressed with our festival. And on the same year, in October, we were able to come up with Dayon, the Western Visayas Theater Festival at the CCP. CCP hosted for the venue only, but with so many years we will be together, we rely on our our resources. Some of us, mostly some of us are school-based, so we were able to tap resources or help from our school. And from there on, ang TEATROKON, maraming ginawang mga big collaborative production, and it was a very good learning for us, no? We started with during the centennial of Graciano Lopisaina, who is from Iloilo. There was a committee that handled the event, and so we were tapped, no, on TEATROKON to come up with a life story, a theater presentation on the life of Graciano Lopisaina, which was held in Central Philippine University in Iloilo. And from there on, nagkaroon ang CCP, Outreach and Exchange Division, ng kanyang 30th year. They have the PILAC, which was a nationwide project na meron sa Luzon, meron sa Mindanao, and sa Visayas. So sa Visayas, kami naman ulit ang natap, no? And we came up with a big production directed by Mr. Gardy Labad. It was called Panakayon sa Palanublion, or Journey to Heritage. And during the time, we were also able to invite the theater groups from the Eastern Visayas, from Samar and Leyte. And then after that, with that experience, we were able to come up together again in Capiz with Damgo, which was directed also by Gardy Labad. Damgo is a translation and adaptation of the Midsummer Night's Dream of Shakespeare. And katapos noon, ang pinaka-latest namin na nagawa as a network is to collaborate with other theater groups from the Visayas during the Mangayaw, which was the launching of the Philippine Quincentennial, which was held in Cebu last December. So ipakilala ko muna ang mga grupo natin that composed the TEATROKON. Next slide, please. The first is the University of San Agustin Little Theater, which was organized in 1965 by Father Eduardo Perez. He is an Agustinian Spanish friar. And from there on, tuloy-tuloy ito. And the latest, it was handled by several artistic directors. And ang pinaka-latest is the brother of Eric, si Edward. And eventually, when Edward left for abroad, si Eric handled the USALT. We call this the USALT. No? Ang mga ma-consider ko na contribution at saka advocacy ng USA Little Theater is theater in education. No? When lahat kami halos ng mga school-based group, when we started, we borrowed scripts from Manila, no? Mga translation and adaptations. But eventually, we were able to come up. Until now, we come up now with original plays. No? And I would consider one of the original play na naging malaking contribution sa environment at sa kultura sa Iloilo is ang Basura Busters na ginawa ng grupo at nagkaroon ng award sa TAYO. TAYO stands for the 10 Accomplished Youth Organization, no? Under the National Youth Commission. And ang pinaka-latest, now with the transition to online because of the COVID, ito nakikita natin sa poster is the shock. No? This is an original live play and now they transported that into an online version. So this is USALT, no? Brief lang. Next slide, please, is the Mascara Theater Insam, which is organized by Director Peque Galiaga at the University of St. LaSalle. It has undergone several directors, but the current director is Ms. Tanya Lopez, who is also the executive director of the Negros Museum. Ang Mascara naman was the training ground of several of our film actors and directors like Ronnie Lazaro, Joel Torre, Eric Mate, Lo Fajardo, no? And ang dami mga experiment na ginawa ng Mascara, no? From staging foreign plays in the past and now we're doing mostly original plays also. Ang isang pinaka-long-running project ng Mascara was Crossroads. These are plays, series of plays that deals with the concerns of the youth, no? And next slide, please, is the Canlaon Theater Guild, which was established in 1990 under the Performing Arts Scholarship Program of Colegio San Agustin, Bacolod. I started as the artistic director way back in 1990, but in 2016, I had to migrate to the Canlaon Theater Guild. So the current artistic director is one of the alumnus of the Guild, Mr. Ricardo Salana, who is currently one of the executive committee member of the Committee on Dramatic Arts of the NCCA. Ang Canlaon na rin was able to come up with several original plays na in the past. And last year, we were lucky together with the Cagayan Dance Group to be able to, for the first time na experience ng grupo, to participate in the Bangkok Theater Festival. Ang Canlaon nagkaroon din ng award sa 10 Accomplished Youth Organization of the Philippines, no? Through their play na si Iska na Permihanda. This is an naging bunga ng dumaan na Typhoon Yolanda, when we were able to be tapped by one NGO to come up with a play for children that were may karanasan sa Bagyong Yolanda. And from that experience, doon nagsimula ang commitment ng grupo to come up with socially relevant plays, especially sa mga current issues natin. The next slide, please, would be the performance laboratory. This is based at the Negros Museum. Composed naman ito mostly ng mga graduates sa college na mga theater performers. No, it started with graduates ng Mascara Theater Insang, but now it's open to other groups. No, ito naman, this is life after college. No, and this is a semi-professional group. So per project they receive honorarium, and nakikita natin sa poster, ito ang pinaka-latest nila na ginagawa na project in response to the COVID. No, we had this Friday monologues. Next slide is the Binhi Creative. This is a community-based theater group based in Barangay Banago, which is a coastal barangay in Bacolod City. No, they are mostly composed of children. They are into visual, music, literature, handcraft. No, handicraft, marami sila. No, this is a community initiative also. The next group is the Dagway Sigmahano. Next slide, please. Ang Dagway Sigmahano naman is originally started as a group in Sigma Capiz, when Al Tesoro was still working in Sigma, and eventually some of the members naging member na rin ng staff ni Al Tesoro, who is currently the tourism and cultural officer of the province of Capiz. No? So itong nakikita natin na poster is one of the mentioned ko kanina na collaborative production namin with other theater groups. The next group is the Teatro Linganay, which is composed of seminarians, no, mga seminarista ng Sacred Heart Seminary. This was organized by the former rector of the school, now the Bishop of the Diocese of San Carlos, si Bishop Jerry Alminasa. No? So itong magandang training din sa mga seminarista natin, and they represented Visayas in the second Tanghal, which was hosted by Zamboanga way back in 1997 or 98, I think. Then, 2008 rather. And then the last group is Kalingaw ang Teatro Hiligay noon, which was organized by the late Joel Arbolario, no? After his stint with Dungog and Banaag, no? When Joel died, Mr. Ismael Haba took over, but when Mr. Haba retired from West Negros University, nawala na rin ang grupo na ito, no? Although yung mga naging members nito, nagkaroon na rin sila ng sarili nilang mga grupo. One of which is still being supported by Maeng is the Busilak Dance Theater, which is based in Kabangkalan City. So may mga iba pa mga grupo na hindi ko na mention, but these are the major players, no? And we now go to TABOK. TABOK means to cross, no? Kasi nga sinasabi na, I've missed this one. Sorry, Alex. Ang Teatro San Antonio, which was under Mr. Alex de los Santos of Antique, no? When he was still teaching at St. Anthony's College. Ngayon, si Mr. de los Santos is based at the Antique University. No, I don't know what's the latest about Teatro San Antonio. And now we go to TABOK. These are the groups that composed TABOK: Kasing Sining ng Bohol, the YATA or the Youth Advocates through Theater Arts, the Guangbing Institute of the Performing Arts in Cebu, and the Lusad Teatro in Bantayan, no, Performing Arts. I would also like to mention also na meron pa tayong iba, no, upstage na ni Miss Ligaya Rabago of Cebu, ang Teatro Santa Fe ni Jay Caniete sa Bantayan, at ang VMCI Mobile Theater ni Father Ned Tiso sa Talibon, Bohol. Ang Kasing Sining is under the artistic direction of Mr. Gardy Labad. Next slide, please. So I don't have to elaborate. Ang dami-dami ng ginawang mga project ng Kasing Sining, the latest of which was they collaborated with Yata and Lusad and Guangming with the Sigbin, no? Stories of the regions about the mythical creator na Sigbin, which was staged in the provinces of Bohol, Cebu, and Dumaguete, no, sa Negros Oriental. The latest na nagawa ng naging project ng Kasing Sining was they were able to go to Seoul Institute is in South Korea for a possible partnership. The next group is Yata. Next slide, please. The Youth Advocates Through Theater Arts, which was organized when Desa Quezada Pam conducted a workshop in Dumaguete, no? And ang dami-dami na rin engagement ng Yata with the partnership with PETA, and now lately with the pandemic, may mga ginawa sila mga radio drama and so on. And they had represented the country in the Asian Theater Festival together with the University of San Agustin Little Theater. The next group is the Guangming, no? Institute of the Performing Arts. Nangyari ito na because this is composed of after the experience Siddhartha the musical, which is an all Cebuano musical, no? And from there nag-establish ng Guangming Institute sa Cebu. And ayan, nakikita natin ang isang poster nila ng kanilang online mga courses ngayon because of the pandemic. And then next group is the Lusad, no? Under Sakay Dax Barlan. This is based in Bantayan Island together with Santa Fe, a group ni Jai Cañete. So these are the groups that compose our network, no? Both TEATROKON and TABOK. Ngayon, with our experiences, ang dami-dami na namin ginawa, no? I would cite and let me cite ang Bacolod through the Mascara and the Performance Lab and the other theater groups, we were able to experience Sanay Guro. This is a training under the DepEd and NCCA partnership, no, where we train teachers who are handling the SPA. So our core group, mga second liners natin, are naging kasama na ito sa training na ito ng Sanay Guro. And I think for several semesters and summers, we were able to host that at the University of St. LaSalle. And aside from that, we were able to come up, no, particularly here, hosted by the Negros Museum, ng mga projects that are under NCCA like Lihok, Mugna, and Hanas. This is the big projects that tackle not just theater arts, but also dealt with creative industries, with tourism, and so on. And through Gardilabad, when Bohol hosted the Tanghal, nagkaroon din ng isang component na Likha Asia when we were able to connect with several Asian countries who went to Bohol just to perform. And of course, ang Tanghal, our experiences in Tanghal since the first Tanghal in Iloilo and in the lately ang Tampok. Ang Capiz was the site for several Dungog camp. Dungog is the indigenous people, young people's camp, no, which was hosted by Rojas City for several years. So these are, and of course, these are our mga nagawa na, no, and with that experience, siguro, we are now ready, or we are ready for the Academy of the Performing, the Academy for the Theater Arts, no. Next slide, please. Balikan ko lang muna, sandali, ang maging karanasan namin din sa Visayas since 1969, the pre-martial law days, up to the present, no? if you remember, nung bago mag-martial law, masyado ng the women in our theater history were influential, no? When Cecil Guiduti established the PETA and Imelda Marcos established the CCP with her Philippine High School for the Arts and the Folk Art Theater, and si Finaida Amador established her Repertory Philippines, no? These are may mga naging influensya din sa mga probinsya, no? And I would remember with PETA, ang isang consider namin na icon in Bacolod during the time in the 60s, si Luisa Midel was able to connect with PETA, and from doing several English plays in the past has to shift to street theater and advocacy mga protest theater, no? And her biggest contribution was able to come up with Taltal. This is a Lenten play which was staged at the Paglaom Stadium. It was a big production pattern after the Obermargao. And from that experience, lahat ng mga actors and production people of that big production was able to become directors as well as scriptwriters and so on. It was a good training ground. And of course, dumating ang martial law. Kanina na-mention at siguro ni Bobet, no? Ang maging karanasan natin. And sa amin din, nagkaroon ng makiisa. We were able to host the makiisa ng PETA. Ang palagi pa rin what we're doing, which is theater pa rin, is the commemoration of the Escalante Massacre, no? Under Teatro Obrero ni Abondo. And these are the experiences namin until the EDSA People Power. So post-EDSA, nasabi na rin kanina ni Bobet, ang magiging karanasan natin leading to the centennial of the Philippine Revolution. So yung mga iba natin na kasama noon sa protest theater went into the academy, to the local government units, and naging uso ang mga festivals, no? Especially in the Visayas, when you talk of the Visayan festivals, diba, ang dami-dami, no? From Mascara to Sinulog and so on, Dinagyang. And some of our people naging aktibo dito, no? Medyo nalihis na siya, nagpunta siya sa mga entertainment and although may karoon din ng mga may na-contribute din sila because of their theater experience, no, in terms of production management, as performers, and so on, no? And culminating in the 1998 Philippine Centennial. Of course, this is the years na nagkaroon tayo ng National Theater Festival 1992 and 1996, no, na nakasali din ang Visayas. In the first NTF, nagkaroon ng Sarsuela ang Silay, Matamis Manggali ang Kalamay, performed by the Sakadas of Silay. And then ang Cebu, nagkaroon sila ng Maria Makiling, and ang Iloilo under Edwin Duero came up with the epic, the Hinilawod epic to the Iloilo National High School. And in the second round ng NTF, we were the Canlaon Theater Guild with the Cagayan Dance Troupe ng San Agustin in partnership with our several artists in Negros Occidental, we were able to come up with Papa Isyo. And after that, from 1999, we are going to the new millennium. Ang dami-dami na rin mga nangyari, no? At that is nagkaroon tayo ng NCCA, nagkaroon tayo ng Tanghal, ng Tampok, and so on. And marami na din kami mga engagement with other groups like VIVA, the Visayas Island Visual Arts Conference. Ang nagkaroon din kami ng, I remember, I'm sorry, I forgot, nagkaroon ng the first Visayas Theater Festival in 1995 with Saulog, no? And kasali doon ang Eastern Visayas, no? That was the beginning. And so with those vast experiences, ang dami-dami na natin nagawa. Balik tayo ngayon, punta natin ngayon ang tanong. Ano ang mga tanong na papunta dito sa creation of the Theater Academy? Next slide, please. So, next slide. Ang unang tanong, based on our context, praxis, and pedagogy, how can this contribute to the shaping of the Academy of Philippine Theater? Next slide. In terms of praxis, context rather, Of course, nagsabi ko na, mga groups namin are composed mostly of school-based, community-organized, including the church, no? And a handful of semi-professional theater groups in the region. Next slide. Praxis. Sa mga school-based group, ang anong mga realities namin, mabilis ang turnover ng mga membership, no? Kasi when they graduate. And some would extend up to 5 to 6 years lang. Sometimes when pag-graduate, walang masyadong ginagawa na pwede pang nag-volunteer. And yung support ng mga schools comes from scholarship, no? And cultural fees ng mga estudyante. Ang output namin is mostly annual or semi-annual if we are semestral. Sa community naman, next slide please. Ang members natin, mostly sa community, stay longer, no? Especially sa mga church, no? Membership is voluntary. Support comes from the community, no? Or from the church, maybe, or the local government unit, and can also be fundraising. Output is seasonal. Depende sa event or sa festival. Maybe time in the community fiesta or Holy Week, and so on. Paano naman na-sustain ng mga members ng kanilang sarili? Through other means, no? So para kasi voluntary siya. So may daytime, may day work, and other projects. Ang sa next slide, please. Semi-professional, like the performance laboratory, ang members are either part-time or project-based and voluntary. Per performance ang bayad, and ang output based on the regular seasonal, depende sa season na rin ng grupo. And so the group is sustained through ticket sales, grants, sponsorship, no? And that's it. Next slide. Pedagogy. Ano mga laman na mga kaundan, no? School-based theater groups have programmed regular workshops towards an output, no? Usually cycle or production. So yung mga trainings namin usually falls under summer or semestral break, no? Although we have a regular rehearsals every evening mostly. Ang mga school-based and community theater namin, we attend several workshops, talks, seminars, training, which is organized by TEATROKON, TABOK, and siyempre malaking tulong din yung Speakers Bureau ng NCCA, no? And then ang mga through our annual festivals like Kuris in Bacolod, the Iloilo Theater Festival in Iloilo, ang Kapistahan ng Kapis, and so on. These are opportunities for exchange and collaboration. Like sa Kuris, for several years now we were able to partners with the Women's Playwright International. So this may mga foreign groups kami or foreign individual theater practitioners who goes to Bacolod to share their expertise in terms of workshop, talks, and so on. And ngayon, we are also sharing that to other groups now. Next page, next slide, brother. How can we contribute to the shaping of the APT? I think siguro we need to, kailangan natin i-review yung mga pedagogy and programs na nagawa. Membership can enroll in the APT to further their studies on theater practice since there is no formal training in the region. No? Ang alam natin talaga na sinasabi natin formal training or academic training andun sa UP, no? sa Manila. Festivals can both be springboards and platforms for engagement, audience development, and partnerships with local government units and other institutions to support theater in the regions. Like dito sa amin sa Bacolod, during the annual Panaad sa Negros Festival, which is initiated by the province of Negros Occidental, we were able to every year get a grant from the province to stage a theater festival during the festival. So, yun. Next slide. Next slide, please. What should be the content and methodology of the Academy of the Philippine Theater? Next slide. Content, marami na tayo naging experience, theater history natin, be it Philippine theater, ASEAN, Western theater. Ang dami nating acting processes and approaches, no? Organization and management, design and technical theater, marketing and promotion, and exploration of new theater forms. Next slide. Methodology through workshops, lectures, seminars, and fora, artistic exchanges, artists in residency, culminating in recital. See, Anton Juan was able to, through Hanas, was able to stay with us here and was able to stage a production. No? Community, mga on-site performances and festivals. Next slide. What should be the structure, be it physical, human, organizational, look like for the Academy? Suggestion, a hub model that reflects aspects of both hierarchical and network structures, which is applicable in the Visayas, no? Mga hubs natin. So in Bacolod, we have the Negros Museum as a hub, sa Iloilo, sila Eric, and sa Altisoro in Capiz, no? Each node or regional network and group represents a team within the larger project organization. So yun, na-experience na natin with Sanay Guro na we were able to work together, no? Even if we come from different regions. And next suggestion, next slide. Within each node are individual team members who are experts and leaders, and there may be several feature teams, no, for satellite and community programs, and a center of excellence. Isang example, ang sa Bohol, no, which is now in partnership with the SUL, and meron silang institute. Next slide. Teams may be real, virtual, or a combination. The integration and build team is just a specific role and meets periodically, could be a virtual team made up of selected part-time members of other teams. And to wrap up, next slide. Ito lang nakikita natin in terms of orientation, artistic, and organization. Next slide, orientation. Pagtingin natin, because of namula ito sa bayan, marami nating karanasan, pwede mula sa bayan, kabayanan, papunta rin para sa bayan. And next slide is artistic. It could be traditional and contemporary, global and local, multi-arts, interdisciplinary. And last, organization, a school. It could be a school, multi-centers, a network of hubs, a fellowship of distinguished theater practitioners across various fields, an accrediting body for theater programs, organizations and network, a national theater archives and research center, na-mention na rin kanila Bobet, and a conservatory and a laboratory. That's all. Maraming salamat. Salamat, Gid.
Maraming salamat, Rudy, sa masobra mo 4 ka dekada nga pagpamuklat sa kamalahalon sa teatro sa kabuhi sang tao. Ngayon po, babasahin natin ang ilang mga comments at bibigyan natin ng panahon para sagutin ito ng ating mga speakers. Nandito po yung isang tanong from Maylene Manawis Mapanaw. Maraming salamat po. Madami po akong naging realization sa aking narinig ngayong hapon bilang guro ng SPA Theater Arts class. Mabuhay po ang kulturang Pilipino. May mga drama workshop sa mga nagdaang taon at kahit meron kaming curriculum guide, puro internet-based ang aming references at mapalad ako dahil kahit paano may 2 aklat akong hawak ngayon. Subalit, hindi ko po iyon sapat. But to tell you honestly, I really tried and spent time for my modules in theater arts just to finish and meet the deadline. Not certain though with the activity sheets I made. Could you help us please? It would be my great honor if you could share us learning modules for our students. Sagot po? Desa, sino sasagot?
Sige, so pwede, kung pakiusapan lang natin lahat na buksan uli ang kanilang mga video at ang kanilang audio for our open forum. And please join us also, Gardy, Edward, and Philemon. Well, I think may medyo specific, no? Kasi for the past several weeks, we have had mga SPA teachers in theater, no, na nag-a-attend kasi naghahabol din sila doon sa self-learning module. So, hindi ko alam kung sino sa inyo yung pwedeng mag-respond siguro doon sa concern ng ating mga teachers, no, na may kasalatan, parang kulang ang mga available na materials at dahil sa pandemic, umaasa sila sa internet para sa kanilang mga resources, no? Pero alam natin na hindi yun sapat. So, siguro yung ilan sa inyo na involved dun sa pag-develop ng curriculum, pwedeng Edward or Gardy?
Edward na lang. Edward?
Yes. Well, nakipag-usap na ang NCCA with the DepEd National, and we started doing yung tinatawag na module sa lahat ng discipline: theater, music, visual arts, creative writing. So abangan nyo po, medyo tumatagal siguro yung paggawa ng module, but sa pinakamalapit na panahon, hinahabol natin na by October lalabas po yung kahit na first quarter. Kung hindi man siguro mai-produce ng DepEd for some reason, kasi ang dami niya rin ginagawa, I suppose ang NCCA is planning to come up with a parang portal nito wherein these modules will be uploaded para accessible po sa mga teachers. So watch out po. There are a lot of initiatives among our theater experts, especially those involved in NCCA. Nasagot ko na po. So abangan na lamang po.
Perfect.
Salamat.
Yes po. Yung ikalawang question po, galing kay kay Bubo from Cebu. I would just like to be clarified on the role of the Cultural Center of the Philippines Outreach Program. Kailan ba talaga ito nagsimula? At considering sa dinami-dami ng mga theater organizations sa Pilipinas since the 1960s, I would assume the parallel number of materials or plays, theater productions that have been created. Meron po bang libro na research dito na buo at na-publish ang iba't ibang literary materials na pwedeng nawala?
Naririnig ka namin, oo. Basically, oo. Sige, baka yung iba gustong magbanggit ng nalalaman nilang mga published, lalo na sa mga networks ninyo. In fact, next week po, sa September 19, may e-book launching tayo ng Tipanan, na isang produkto ng network sa NCR, ng Cal Foundation, ng ALYANSA, at saka ng Guro para sa Sining ng Bayan. So, isang isang resource na. Pero Bobet, Rudy, Romy, and Edward, sa mga regions ba may mga lathala na mga mga publications para na pwedeng magamit ng ating mga cultural workers?
Ako, okay, nabanggit mo na kasi yung nabanggit na rin yung Tipanan. Yeah. Kasi ang plano doon talaga sa series, no. Sa ngayon parang initial ilang upa lang yung sama, pero gagawin siyang plano na series siya na ma-document particular lahat ng mga plays sa NCR, particular sa hanay ng mga mag-aaral, no. Antayin na lang din siguro namin kahit di kami masyado involved sa SPA, pwede naman magamit, no. Meron pa rin namang initiative yung ibang mga networks na para magamit, no, as source o parang material for teaching theater siguro. Okay. Yun lang. Thank you.
Akin des. Sa pagkakaalam ko, ang Virgin Love Fest always comes up with several books na, no? Ang mga nalatha na mga play nila. And of course, ang medyo natigil na yan sa Palangka, no? Pero sa regions, wala pa yata, I'm talking sa Visayas, wala pa yatang comprehensive na publication about our plays, mga original plays. Pero kami like sa at talking of Kanlaon, ang ibang mga materials namin, pinahihiram namin sa mga grupo na humihingi. So we just have to wait kung sino yung hihingi. Sometimes, based on our experience, pag napanood nila, they would ask na, can we have a copy? Can we also restage that? Pinapayagan naman namin. So yun ang kakaalam ko.
Thank you, Rudy.
Yes, sa Luzon po. Yeah, sa Luzon po meron po tayong Likandula manual on theater improvisation. It's exercises how to go about doing a theater exercise. It's produced by artists and NCCA. And then this coming October, we'll be coming up with another book which we call Likmuan. It's about ICA, so intangible cultural-based heritage learning resources, which could be used by the teachers by using their intangible cultural heritage across all curriculum. And then as far as I know, maraming pinudyus sa Manila. In fact, sa grupo sa Manila, sa UP, they have this mga dulang mapanghimagsik, mga dulang pinudyus noong 1970s na dinocument nila Dr. Lumbera at nila Dr. Glesia Atienza. So, yun yung natatandaan kong mga listahan ng mga libro na meron. Sa Rion din, meron. Pero ito, nasa tabi ko lang ngayon. Ito, mga studies in pre-war Sugbuanon Theater, first series by Ramas. So, there are a lot of books na pwede natin balikan. Pero in the most recent, I suppose, abangan na lang natin, gaya ng sinabi ni Bobet, i-announce yun ng mga regions. Thank you.
Sige, Bundo.
Yes, may time pa ba tayo, Desa?
Kung siguro one or last two pero gusto ko lang basahin din na si Professor Glesia Atienza, sabi niya, we can share a list of references on Philippine theater and regional theater. So ayun, meron namang na magbabahagi din sila at pwede siguro nating mabanggit na rin dun sa launching ng Tipanan, no? Kung paano sila makaka-access ang ibang mga tao.
Yeah, Desa, may add-on lang ako for Mindanao, no? For yung mga naka-online ngayon na nanonood from Mindanao, mga SPA teachers. Actually, isa sa mga prolific na writers natin sa Mindanao, si Dr. Steve Fernandez sa Iligan, IPAG. He has already published a lot of books. Actually, kalalabas lang ng 2 libro niya, yung Directing from the Fringes, yung experience niya in directing theater sa konteksto ng experiences niya in Mindanao. So, available na po yun in print at meron din siyang libro on making theater, no, the stagecraft of drama. So, marami siyang sinusulat na yun ng mga libro. And offhand, doon sa mga SPA theater teachers, last week in Mindanao, we organized the SPA Theater Network para matulungan yung mga teachers. So, siguro you can ask some of your co-teachers na nakasama doon sa meeting because we are setting up a group para doon ang magiging, we will throw there whatever materials that we can provide to help our SPA teachers in Mindanao. So, sa ngayon, SPA Theater Mindanao lang po muna ang nakaalat yung group.
Bundo?
Yes. May last pa o i-wrap up na natin to ang open forum?
Wrap up na natin. Siguro isang round na lang of mensahe ng bawat speaker bago natin tawagin ang ating synthesizer na si Pe. Sige, simula tayo kay Edward. Siguro yung pagkakasunod na lang kanina.
Maraming salamat po sa pagkikinig. Again, sa part namin, we've been involved in theater for 30 years, but we think it could go beyond theater, pwedeng performances na iba't ibang platform. And currently, we are doing 3 projects na online lahat. So you can get in touch with it, okay? We can get involved with this. One is the Malikhaing Guro International Conference on October 10, 17, and 24 with speakers from Denmark, USA, Australia, and Vietnam, and the Philippines. Of course, we're also doing the Port Likandula International Arts Exchange and Collaboration. The theme is Collab, utilizing space, imagine space, especially in times of pandemics. It's all online performances for 1 week. We have performers from Japan, Korea, Thailand, and then of course the last one we have the Pangatnigan. It's a weekly online open microphone performance. Please watch out. Maybe we can share some things about that. Dito po sa darating na next Saturday pala, Pangatnigan. Thank you.
Salamat. Bobet?
Siguro sa akin yung huli lang ay importante pa rin ang konsepto natin ng pagbabalik sa kasaysayan at magandang tingnan ang pagtatasa sa ating karanasan. Lalo na sa panahon ngayon ng pandemya, malaki ang role ng cultural workers. No? Kung sa panahon ng diktadurya dati ay ang mga cultural workers, ang mga artista ang naging budyong ng panawagan ng katotohanan at panawagan tungo sa pagbabago. Sa panahon ng pandemya na inunmask, tinanggal ang mukha, no, ang maskara, ang tunay na mukha na dati pa after EDSA Revolution ay binaliwala. Hindi naman nawala ang mga problema, ang issue at problema ng bayan. Medyo political kung tutuusin, pero hindi naman tayo hiwalay sa mga issue pampolitika, mga issue ng bayan na patuloy nating kinakaharap. Sana ang pandemyang ito ay magsilbing panimula muli. Sabihin natin, sana gumising uli tayo sa katotohanan na inilantad itong pandemyang ito. Ang issue ng kahirapan, kawalan ng trabaho, ang issue ng sistema sa pamamahala. Lahat nito ay naanmas. Ang issue ng pangkapaligiran, ang issue sa health, ang issue sa food security. Lahat na yan ay patuloy nating dadanasin pa sa dadating na mga panahon. No? Sa darating na mga taon, ang epekto nito ay patuloy nating mahirapan. Sa ngayon pa lamang, ang tanggalan sa trabaho ay napakadami na, milyon na. At yan ay aabutin pa ang hindi lang 2 taon. Patuloy ang dadanasin ng mamamayang Pilipino at ang panawagan ngayon. Tanging ang pagsasama-sama, ang isang prinsipyadong samahan pa rin ang susi para dito. Dahil, katulad ng dinadanas natin ngayon, simpleng ayuda, hirap na hirap ang ating mga kasama. Bakit hindi natin magawa? Dahil wala tayong iisang tinig. No? Kaya ang panawagan ko ay itayo pa rin ang pambansang samahang panteatro. Mabuhay ang mga manggagawang pangkultura. Salamat po.
Salamat, Bobet. Romy?
Siguro wala na akong may dagdag sa mga matalinghagang mga last words sa mga nauna nagsalita. Wala akong kakayahan to talk about national issues. But I come from a young city and I just realized that the second coming in of land grabbing, but this time managing business in Jensen, actually mga tao sila from Manila. The subdivisions here are clearly owned by people from Manila, but they are not residents of the place. Baka hindi lang ito pictures sa General Santos, baka picture ito ng big places or cities in Mindanao. There's another big problem in Mindanao, which my Muslim performers would like me to go into, the problem of the mestizo. I'm saying all of these things because many of the plays that I have witnessed are superficial, very Western, very television. Mahirap po talaga ang teatro. Hindi po siya sayaw-sayaw, kanta-kanta lamang, pero collective kasi siya. Kailangan tingnan mo yung kultura. Yung SPA program ko one time, I forced them to look into the connection between absences in the classroom and the existence of pamato. And then suddenly, through their students, na-discover nila na may connection yun. Naku, ang yung SPA, doon magsimpla. Look at your students, look at your neighborhood, your immediate community, and you have the story. Pag sinabi ng DepEd, kultura ng Pilipinas, hindi ibig sabihin pumunta ka sa Luzon, sa Igorot, sa mga Visayas, sa mga Muslim, or dyan mismo sa imong komunidad. Maraming kwento dyan. Sige. Yung mga SPA, dali rin na siya. Just approach the right person and then wag magdamgo na moadto ka sa Culture Center of the Philippines. Classroom lang. Meron na kaming workshop for classroom purposes only. Hindi kailangan ng costuming, hindi kailangan ng ilaw, hindi kailangan ng set. Kailangan lamang meron kang kwento na i-share. Daghang salamat.
Salamat, Romy. Rudy?
Okay, in this pandemic, marami tayong realization, no? My realization is for us like people like me, we have to learn the technology, no? Isang struggle yan. And at the same time, my realization na this pandemic will stay for 2 to 3 years pa. So this is the module online mostly. This offers opportunity for us to engage not just with our immediate environment, but nag-open din siya ng possibilities to interact with other countries, no? Because of the connections, no? At the same time, siguro dapat din natin at this point, wag na i-preserve na natin through the archives and through publication and maintaining in whatever way we can maintain that or sustain that, yung mga tradition, theater tradition natin, ang history natin, especially yung mga sinasabi ni Bobet na we are now dealing with our second liners. No? We need, until now, akala ko mag-rest na ako, we need to guide them pa pala. hindi pa pala ako pwedeng mag-rest. Slow down lang. Pero yun, we need to connect with these young people for them to appreciate, to them to know what was ang pinanggalingan natin, ang pagkarami-rami nating karanasan mula noon hanggang ngayon. Salamat po.
Yes po. Maraming salamat po sa ating mga speakers. At ngayon, ang pinakaabangan natin, ang synthesis ni Pepot Rimotigi. Bye, Pepot!
Hi. Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. So more than 1,000, mga 1,000 netizens who are keeping track of what we're doing here. From England, from Nueva Vizcaya in the north, to General Santos and Nabunturan in the south. Wow. Now, before I start with the 4 slides that I'm going to share with you, a big round of applause to our speakers. This is a very significant event, 7th event. It's very significant because most of the speakers are men and they are below 60 years old. And they are presenting to all of us, and I would imagine that Gardy, Malu, and Tatang, ang galing nila. Maybe we can declare them now as the guardians of the continuum of Philippine theater. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Kasi I used to believe na you do not tell stories to men, because when you tell it to them, you tell it to a person. I used to believe that you have to tell stories to the women so that it will be told to generations. Parang pinapivot yata ninyo yan na. Dinideconstruct ninyo yan na concept because what you were telling us were really stories of generations. Second is I would like to discuss possible bias in this for 2 reasons. One is this is an unfinished business in my experience in Mindanao. But at the same time, I might have a tendency to push what were unfinished business during our time without necessarily giving justice to the robust experience that you were sharing with us. And the third na isabi ko sa inyo is whatever comes out of this, my disclosure, I do not have any personal interest, monetary, or I was never influenced by the committee. I was never influenced by Gardy. So this is really an objective learning from what we heard. Ang pagtingin natin sa synthesis na to is a simple question. From what were shared, ano ang ating take-home learning na mahawakan? Yan lang. I do not intend to repeat what they said. It cannot be repeated. Only them can share it. ang akin na lang is i-guide tayo. Ano yung mahawakan natin pag-uwi? So can we have the next slide, please? Nikki? Thank you. So, ang ating synthesis ngayon ay nakabase, alam ko na mag-Tagalog, on two inputs. One are the regional practices from 1960s to present, more than 60 years, around 3 generations, if a generation is 20 years. At the same time, they were straddling, sorry, Rude ha, kasi akala ko Western Visayas ka lang. When you were presenting now, parang the entire Visayas, which is 3 regions. So nagiging 14 regions na talaga ang somehow ang experience na you were privy to. So somehow you were telling about regional scopes. Parang 14 out of 17 regions. So that's pretty representative somehow. So si Bobet is dalawa ang kanyang scope, no? May kasi NCR siya eh. May tendency kasi ang NCR na magtingin ng national and then NCR pa. So, yun ang nakita mo siguro ninyo ang poetry. That's why poetry ang kay Bobet kasi nasa kanya ang frustration. Rudy, Edward, umalahukan ka talaga when you were telling the story. We enjoyed listening to your stories, the way an umalahukan does it. Rudy, you were realistic in your presentation. Romy, my God, Romy, dramatic. Were you using expressionism or what you call this, satire? But I think you communicated so well how you describe the pedagogies. Now, the next are the theories. Kasi pag mag-synthesize, maganda kasi yung experience sa kung Freirean na concept. Kung meron siyang experience, maganda na ibangga siya sa certain theories. So what I did was basis of unity para makita natin kung ano ang potential niya. And there were 2 territories persuasions. Ang pangalawa is dahil nakinig ako sa last 6 Saturdays. So nakita ko ang mga repetitively na parang they can make or break from the speakers. So supply-demand, actually theater industry ang sinabi, pero I just expanded it to service industry kasi ang dami palang SPAs dito. It becomes an education as a service industry. I don't know how we call it. So si Odi and si Beng were very clear in expressing it. And then market absorption and readiness of the Philippine theater industry and government offices. Si Dr. Abad and si Jonas. Jonas offered a solution. And then of course, ang lahat nagsabi ng OAO, orientation, kamalayan, kalinangan, pero karanasan man yun ang gusto ni sinabi ni Bobet at saka katipunan. So these 3 are the ones that we are using in going ahead with the synthesis. So somehow ito yung ating pinagbasihan. Next slide please. Now, synthesis statements. I hope I am not reducing the whole exercise, but since we use only those theories, so parang hindi ma-include yung ibang experience, which are very broad and deep and so on. So, number 1 na statement, the networks are or were united by 2 types of band. One type would be by persuasion, kamalayan, sector, and this pedagogies, master fans. Kasi kami sa Mindanao, mga fans club kami ni Dong Galinsoga, mga fans club kami ni Carl Gaspar, mga fans club kami yung ganon. So, pedagogies, dramaturgies, you have also the Kambayoka is a network. They reach even other countries and so on. So, marami yang mga thread that transcend territories. Now, generally, these are cultural and persuasion. The second is territories. Now, these 2 can coexist. In the history of the different networks, nakita ninyo na grabe yung pagbangga talaga ng dalawa. Kasi klaro sila ng persuasion at saka mga ginagawang territorial. Kaya kailangan mag-one territory tayo maski iba't ibang ating persuasion. It can go both ways. It can either weaken the organization or it can either strengthen the organization. It can strengthen the organization if everyone is ready to face differences. So, Bobet, siguro yun ang malaking ninyo challenge sa NCR. Kasi very strong ang mga persuasions, and then pag i-capture mo na siya, paano mo i-handle ang contradictions and so on para ma-harness ang strength. Sila ni artists. Hindi ko alam kung happy si Edward when he described we learned our lessons. So we just organize as art and culture without forcing into our own kamalayan. Something pa yan, Edward, kasi nakita ko kung hindi naman ka excited ka pa dun na napakaganda ng inyong network, but you had to give up the certain persuasions para ma-include lahat. Now, there is a lifeline ng mga networks as introduced by Gardy in the beginning. In the beginning, there were initiatives and networks, and then Bobet really placed the law, NCCA, in front of us. Na yun ang pag-start ng networking sa NCR. Sa ibang regions, nag-start sila with or without NCCA. In fact, NCCA, somehow, I would look at it as a response to the very strong network. Now na nag-wither ang mga networks, NCCA becomes the personification, how do you call it, of the networking. And in the original paper of Romy, he said NCCA is not the network. Bakit nawala na yun ngayon? Pero nasa aking nasa aking read. So yun ang isang synthesis statement about the networks. Number 2, I would like to pivot your mind or deconstruct your mind. Kasi all of the speakers were talking about describing the academy as if it were a distant reality from them. But me, when I listened to all the papers, read all the papers and so on, I'm sorry. What happened was sorry. When I look at them, parang ano ko ang perspective ninyo, you are already doing a big segment of the academy. So ang ano ko dito is may klarong contribution. And in fact, Gardy was very clear in his introduction for this topic. That's why the title is the role. So number 1 role is to stimulate demand for the academy, which was really the fear of Odi and Beng na meron bang papasok na sa academy. So ang next is, bakit magawa kayo ng something new? It was already recognized by Dr. Abad na we would love that so much. At saka sino pa yung mga speakers, hindi ko na mapangalanan, that it can offer a field school. Thank you for the term, Al. Or field campuses for the academy. The way you describe it, you are doing an academy there in your own way. So that's the second major contribution na nakita ko, na nasa thread sa inyong mga sharing. And third is sustainability. You can help absorb graduates into their praxis. Kasi para saan? In fact, I remember one speaker who would say, if we train them, where will they go? If there is no industry to absorb them, why will they do it? Kasi para lang na hindi sila ma-bored during vacation time. So I send these children there or these punta lang ako doon because there's no other. So these things. And the fact that you straddle millions of population, and you are the gateway, you're the portal to the real people and the communities, as every paper was describing. If I will have to describe you, that's your DNA. That is your comparative advantage. Nobody can give that to the network. The gateway to the community culture, and the thriving life. So number 3 is strong networks help develop the theater industry and contribute to enlarging the market for theater practitioners and demand for theater productions. Ang isang pagtingin kasi, it becomes an industry, and I hope Jonas, you're here. What Jonas was really presenting sa pag-define is professionalized, meaning to say, wala ka na ibang gawin, yun na lang gagawin mo. Therefore, you will also have visibility always, so that the people will also have a chance to go to you, rather than once a year, once in a season, and so on. Mahirap yun mag-industry kung ganun pa siya, ang visibility or ang presence. So, I just don't know which comes first. Bayaran ng mga artists para magiging full-time sila na mag-create, or mag-create muna ng marami para mabayaran sila. I mean, this one is something for the discussion. So number 4 is the networks are microcosms of academies. They can be field schools that can offer distinct pedagogy as distinctly described by everyone. That is based on real life experiences. So yun ang synthesis statements from the whole thing. Now I try to put them in a conceptual, next slide please, in a conceptual presentation. I'm not very good in making this. I hope I'm able to, to do it. So you can look at this from the left, right, and the bottom. I would like to start with the bottom. We're talking about theater industry, education industry, other services industry. Actually, theater industry lang yan sa original, pero nung nakita ko na, meron palang ang education, SPA is a very big market. How many teachers are there? Sa government service, sabi ni Jonas is only 42,000. Jonas, ang liit lang nun. And then, pero sa education, then you're talking about lots of teachers. Because when you talk about the industry, in here, useful ang mga theoretical constructs ng Mindanao and TIBO na si TIBO man ang nag-publish niyan. Theater as product and theater as process. And I think SPA is using theater as a process for education. Jonas is saying theater artists will make good leaders. I don't believe in that very well. Pero isa yun sa mga formulations na kung dadaan sila sa theater, they become leaders. Pati si Tata Nanding no, nasabi niya Tata Nanding. So, yun ang the industry. So that means when we talk about that, we expand that, then there will really be a demand. So the learners entry to the academy, and thank you for your circles of colors, Bobet. So you have here the networks that become the field schools. So the demand now sa left will be from the industry, the service industry. That means ang mag-training doon, captive na mga learners will be those from the education and so on, pag-enter ng academy. Now, once they are there, so my field school, ang network will offer a field school na sabi ni Rudy will be based on centers of excellence, and you will have some nodes and hubs and all there. However, that will be designed. And then, once they finish that, they become the supply para i-feed na naman sa industry. We're not saying that we are excluding the others who are not from this defined industry. They might join. And Beng, I hope you're listening. You're talking about 400 million industry in Manila. When I computed it at 1,000 per ticket, that will be around 400,000 for 1 year. 400,000 out of a 12 million population in Manila. Ang laki pa na ating trabahuin. Now, if you go through the theater and so on, maybe doon ko nakita ang role talaga ng network, because the networks are the ones already embedded in this industry and in these institutions, cultural institutions. Next slide, please. Now, from what you shared, what is your comparative advantage, something that the others cannot offer as field school? This is the assumption that everyone is part of a network in the regions or by persuasion, cutting across the regions. Local cultural expressions. That was what Dr. Abad said. Ang ganda, para kami, may mapuntahan na kami. Sila, Odi, may ano ba yung mga terms? Outreaches or what? And then formation of ATOR, artist trainers, organizers, researchers. Very well explained by all the speakers. And then a challenge to learners' knowledge systems, which is really the technique or the secret of a very dynamic learning, when there are challenges and dialogues, contradictions, but make sure you reach a synthesis. And then community of peers for support and strength. I think there are more that you can offer. And I think if you need to really calcal some more, because you cannot really synthesize that very rich paper, no? Experience and so on. Nagaya cherry picking lang ako nito kung ano yung makuha on the basis of the framework. So parang yun ang instead of defining academy as outside of your networks, I would say, if I were part of the academy, this is what we're going to enhance and further elevate and raise to the level of curriculum. Sino yung nagsabi, curricularize and so on and so forth. So I think with that is my last slide. Are the networks aspired? Or are these living, throbbing realities? Or are these, as Romy said, in my mind? Or as strong as described by, or the frustration and the uphill battle of Bobet in NCR and the National? And Edward seemed to have, ang galing, Edward, parang nano, pero I don't know if you were very happy when you presented it, Edward. And then, Rudy, you have faced the challenge of the islands and so on and so forth. So thank you so much. I was very emotional when I was looking at, reading your papers. But I could say, tama ka nga, Desa. I think we can say, and even Gardy said, this is our core comparative advantage to the theater of the whole world. So we hope we can really push this further. Thank you so much.
Daghang salamat, Bay Pepot, summarizing it in almost 18 minutes of the 80 minutes. So daghang salamat kayo. Ang ingon nila, what can I say? Pepot, good, Pepot. So, sa lahat, dito na po nagtatapos ang isa na namang huntahan dito sa Tampok Sabadulaan. Taos pusong pasasalamat uli sa ating mga naging speakers, sila Edward Perez, Bobet Mendoza, Romy Narvaez, and ang akong kasimanwa, si Rudy Reveche. Samahan ninyo kami muli sa susunod na Sabado, September 19, kung saan makakapiling naman natin ang mga kabataang mandudula tulad nila Sain Magarang, has China's Naugsan, Una Raya Quezo, and Sigmund Petzo. Ito ay susundan ng isang e-book launching ng Tipanan, mga aral ng dula mula sa Universidad ng Pambansang Punong Lungsod na proyekto ng National Commission for Culture and the Arts, CAL Foundation, Gusi ng Bayan at ALYANSA. Ito ay gaganapin ng alas 5:30 ng hapon. Sa liwat, mabuhay kag madamong salamat. Padayon.
Magsanib mga bayani ng sining at kultura, lumikha ng sandigan tungo sa kaganapan. Harapin hamon ng bagong panahon, bigyang ilaw ang karinlan. Magsuri pag-isipan ng hulmahan ng ating linangan sa puntahan tungkol sa dulaan. Ituloy ang paghahabi ng kamalayan, paghahabi ng karanasan, paghuhubog ng kasaysayan, tayo't makilahok sa tampok sabadulaan. Ha, ha,